Oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're doing well. Changing over to live chat setting. All right, I don't know what's going on with the goal. Anyways, should be an exciting day. I'll keep working on the goal thing. But it looks like Preston Stewart. I know that I said that Preston Stewart is a fairly dry guy, but he released multiple relevant pieces of content in the past 72 hours. So I'm actually kind of excited to take a look at his stuff, primarily because it's stuff that we should be talking about. Iran is, kind of popping off a little bit because Donald Trump is trying to exercise leverage via power, via hard power, in order to get the Iranians back to the table. The Iranians are saying, no, F you. And as a result, it's kind of a problem. And then, excuse me, not only that, but he was talking about Ukraine's overall disposition, where they're doing some kick-ass shit right now. So, here's U.S. moves to ground operations in Iran. Phase 2 began, Black Sea under fire. Then 28,000 gone is the one that I wanted to show you. And then I would also say U.S. launched new attacks against Iran. It's probably those two are the two most important. That could obviously take a substantial amount of time. And then the Ukraine stuff, huge fan of the Ukraine stuff. Might have to save that for a later date, but the Ukraine stuff is basically like 28,000 Russians got wiped out in the past month. And then also the Ukrainians are prosecuting a very aggressive drone assault in the Black Sea to fuck up Russian logistics. So I find all of that pretty interesting. Fellrunner, hi, good morning. Jonah says good morning. Good morning to you. Illegal war we're losing? Yeah. Rob Slow says live chat's better than whatever other chat. True. I did switch over. Officer Nasty said let's go. True. Hedonic Samuel says hello, chaps. Hello. Randy Chang says good morning, nerds. Happy Friday. Happy Friday indeed. Happy Friday indeed. I need to send some text messages. Holy Fazoli. So I know Politics JK wants me to make my my life completely opaque and not talk about personal stuff that's going on, but the veterinarian doctor, she matched with me. We're trying to plan a date. She does live far away, so we'll see how that goes. But then also this total babe. Like, this total babe matched with me, and I'm like, I'm gonna get catfished. She's gonna chop out my vital organs. She is way too pretty for me. Not that I haven't dated pretty women in the past, but holy fucking shit. Change your thumbnail for fuck's sake. Next week I'll change my thumbnail. Ready for Trump's war on democracy? No, it's gonna be like every other Trump thing. It's gonna be bloated. Connor, I love you. Take a break. What? From females? No. Absolutely not. What are you talking about? I'm literally telling you that a hot chick is fucking matching with me and that's a good thing. And you're like, Connor, take a break. No. I'm going to go get my kidneys chopped out. It's going to be fucking sick. It's going to be awesome. Like the actual kidneys getting chopped out? Not so much. Everything leading up to that, it's going to be sick. Surprised you aren't doing any LibCon coverage from all the panels. What was it? 21st century liberalism in the 21st century panels. Is it Wick? Who did all the LibCon? Show me things. The first thing that popped up is North at LibCon. LibCon Live reacting to Trump's speech. We got Ryan Getty, Soy Pill, Wick, and is that Renee DiResta? If that's Renee DiResta, I will be jealous. Renee and I are friends. She's a California Republican, which basically means a center-right lib. And then, let me see if this is Renee. Oh, nice. There's Riley Grace Rochong and their partner. Love Riley. Then that is Renee DiResta. I'm a huge fan of Renee DiResta. She's a good person. I think that's Corbin Sales in the background. So, yes, I love all these people. So, Riley Grace Rochong's partner, Ryan Getty, Corbin Sales, Renee DiResta, Wick TV, Soy Pill. And I think this was put together by Ringo, who is friends, or he works for Francis Fukuyama. Number one, I think they should have a different camera angle. But number two, I do love all these people, so I'm not shit talking them. But apparently, part of the reason why, according to sources on the ground, okay, according to sources on the ground, me calling out Steven for his antisocial behavior partially led to my disinvitation from LibCon. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying I got some word back that there were some LibCon organizers that were not happy with me beefing with Steven. But guess what? I ain't sweeping for that shit. Y'all have fun with that. Jen Winkler says, I voted for Preston Stewart days ago. True. And I try to do Geopol on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I forget what we did on Tuesday, but Preston's kind of a dry guy. So if you got outvoted, blame your fellow community members. Conservatism says, fourth like reporting in. Does the Republic still stand? Live chat is better than top chat. Of course it still stands, dude. Frickin' Trump. I want you guys to get used to the Trump pattern of behavior. Trump claims more than he's actually going to get. Then there's a big hoopla about it. Then we negotiate back to reality. Trump gets some of what he wants, but realistically, he gets 10% of what he wanted. And if he wasn't a dipshit, he could have fucking gotten 30% or 40%, but because he's such a fucking asshole, he causes a backlash that forces him to get even less than what he originally wanted. So you guys kind of gotta, we're gonna survive. I know you guys are kind of half praying for a fucking apocalypse. That way we can all stop worrying about this bullshit, but it's not gonna happen. You know what's gonna happen is the next 2 years are gonna suck. Donald Trump is gonna be a lame duck after the midterms. We're gonna have to roll up to 28. If fucking JD Vance is the nominee, then we're going to have to try to sexually assault him metaphorically in the general election. And then hopefully a moderate Democrat wins. That's it. That's all that's going to fucking... So literally, it's 2026 right now. 2028 is going to be the elections. For the next 2 years, you need to buckle in order to use sandpaper on your genitals. Okay, that's just what we're waking up every single day and we're rubbing our genitals with sandpaper, metaphorically. Is Ukraine rare earth minerals the same ones that China sits on? So China does something specific that Ukraine does not. I don't know. We could Google that while we're covering the content. Trump's war on democracy is the most important thing. Is it? Or is it going to be cringe and fucking lame and he's going to lose and he's going to get his dick kicked in? Jen Winkler says, Connor, I love you. Take a break. So hold on. I want to explain something real quick on the personal front. I mourned my divorce. I mourned losing Melissa, which sucks. I still hope Melissa calls me. That would be great. But basically, I'm no contact with her. Apparently with avoidance, it's best to go no contact where you don't try to check in with them or whatever. You just let them do their thing and kind of reset emotionally and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to go date other people. Well, I'm not just going to sit around with my hand on my dick. So if there's a cute blonde veterinarian doctor that I can go get coffee with and I can talk about, dude, I fucking love animals. You should know this by now. I fucking love animals. I'm going to go out with a cute veterinarian doctor, get coffee, and talk about animals. And then if some fucking babe who likes riding ATVs and fucking all that kind of stuff, if she wants to, you know, roofie me and chop out my kidneys, I'm going to let her roofie me and chop out my kidneys. You know, it is what it is. What do you want from me? I'm a man. I'm 38. I'm old, but I'm not dead, you know? Vazraka, thank you for the gifted. So stop judging me. I'm a lover. I'm a lover and a fighter. Rob says, still, he's given pretext for expanding emergency powers. He can expand his fucking emergency powers all over my fucking fist up his ass. Still, Wick did some, there were a bunch of creators. Yes, we did just take a look at that, to be honest. I love all of the creators involved, but I doubt it was very sexy. He's using China cheater pretense to do weird election shit and maybe invalidate elections, full Nazi time, woo. Yeah, and guess what? All of it's gonna fucking fall on its ass. Solidus says, fuck North. Well, he'll come back around, okay? Fucking Steven will be jerking off to something weird. North will walk in on him, and he'll be like, ugh, even I can't defend this. And then he'll come back. Don't worry about it. Who is that in the thumbnail? Mockler plus someone in composite? Oh, yeah, it's just Adam Mockler as a Giga Chad. Officer Nasty says, North getting doxxed by Alish wasn't on my LibCon bingo card. Oh my god, did that happen for real? That's kind of crazy. That's wild. Doot. Connor, listen to me, take a break and go to therapy for 2 months, and I promise it all comes back with or without Destiny. I have watched you every day for hours for a year. I know you. That's my last try. Connor, listen to me and take a break and go to therapy for 2 months, and I promise it all comes back with or without Destiny. I have watched you every day for hours a year. I know. Okay, real question. This poll is gonna fucking hurt my feelings, but I'll ask it anyways, because the fact that anybody is gonna fucking do it, is the content substantially different post-drama ? For me, the answer is no. Number one, we haven't even fucking covered Destiny since the fucking drama. Maybe lib left fucking whatever, but we're still covering Geopol, we're still covering debates, we're still covering fucking everything. So I don't even know what you guys are saying is different. Why? For the first 30 minutes, I go, hey, I'm going on dates with people. That doesn't fucking change the content. That's you and me. I've always been open about my personal life. So what I'm curious about is we're currently bouncing between like 70 and 100. What is the, so there's 25%. No, but you seem to lack motivation. Motivation for what? What do you want to do? Okay, hold on. I'm sitting here. I will do what you tell me to do. What do you want me to do? You want me to jack it on stream? What do you want me to do? What the fuck? Literally before the drama, we showed up. We found debates, we found current events, we found news, we reacted to it, and we broke it down. And then, after that, we found current events, we found news, we found debates, and we broke it down. What's the fucking difference? Do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight? That doesn't help me at all. We're getting a lot less dogs unplugging the cables. True. There's just no more Destiny dick watching content, which I'd say is an improvement. See? And that's the thing. The people who are saying that a lot of stuff has changed are fucking, they're like, I want a Connor therapy stream? I'm codependent and I have an anxious attachment style. Therapy over. I love being in a relationship and I like being secure in a relationship. Well, whoop-de-fucking-do. Just like most humans. Amazing. All right, anyways, I'm gonna go through the chat and read, but the 30% of people who are like, yes, the channel has substantially changed post-drama, you're gonna have to articulate how. Anyways, Wait, you were uninvited to LibCon? I'm confused. According to some sources. Now, truth be told, I think that because the midterms are over, the liberals have been drifting away from the center rightoids because they don't really need us at this point, right? So like the Democratic wave is going to happen with or without the tepid endorsement of center-right never Trump Republicans. There's enough momentum that they don't really need us. They only got, what is it? It's July, August, September, October, November. We got 3 or 4 months. They don't need us anywhere near as much as they needed us in 24, right? And so I feel the center left, the desire of the center left to drag in the center right has decreased. And they were already kind of, you know, hostile to the center right because the center right didn't just want to come in and just like take it up the ass from the lefties and vote Democrat. They wanted to even suggest some ideas about how to improve left-wing politics. And that was not always welcome. So what's happened as we've gotten closer to the midterms is the center lefties haven't needed the center righties anywhere near as much. So I already kind of felt that relationship kind of fraying, kind of thawing, you know, or maybe not thawing, maybe like getting more cold, I suppose. So I already felt that happening. But then I think the drama did kind of, it did throw a wrench in my invitation to LibCon. What kind of grit are we talking here? I'm going smooth. I'm not going hard. We all have the minerals, deposits small and a mess. Okay. The election leaks were such a nothing burger. God, it's embarrassing. Yeah, fuck Trump. Fuck his fucking stupid ass. Republicans winning over and over created Bill Clinton in the 90s, the best Democratic leadership we've probably ever had. So there is a silver lining if Republicans win. Yeah, I just don't think it's likely. I think at minimum, we're looking at a blue. What do they call that? Tides. We're going to see blue tides coming in. And at maximum, we might see a substantial blue wave. So you fucking love animals. I fuck women. I love animals. Philip Collier says, move on, bruh. We have. We're literally doing Geopol today. What are you talking about, Philip Collier? Base King, vets are better versions of nurses. I like this plan more than your nurse bar one. Yes. Yeah. Rob says my partner is a vet tech and it's a hard line of work. Yes, but she's a veterinarian doctor. So she went to extended school. And she's my age, and she's cute. Connor, my neighbor in West Virginia is a hot blonde veterinarian horse redneck, but she has an illegal pet monkey. Why haven't you married her yet? Why haven't you taken all the super chats that you've given to the internet and instead given it to her as a gift in order to win her heart and marry her? Jen Winkler says, absolutely embarrassing. Trump proved Russia wasn't a hoax last night. Oh, that sucks. Yeah. Trying to tell that, yeah, dude, let me get my fucking kidney stolen. What the fuck? She's a schizo. She'll probably kill you and your family, but she's nice. Good. Not the killing my family thing, if she just kills me. I love Destiny. Good luck. Good luck with that. Bro, North ain't coming back. He's at the melting pot. Darius Airbnb doing snark tent. She'll loan you her cat for yard work, but probably drown her kids in a bathtub type thing. All right, maybe I don't let her around the kids. That's a good point. Connor, as a straight masculine guy, nothing will break you worse than going to therapy. Don't do it. Get drinks with the bros and talk about sci-fi and sports like God made us. True. Did you see Tim Pool's post about Trump's speech last night? He posted surprise that China paid influence to bash Trump. Dude, I'll tell you straight up. The reason why I don't give a shit is once again the Trump cycle that I just mentioned. Trump makes some hyperbolic statement. He pushes for something. There's huge backlash to it. He accomplishes 10% of what he set out to do. And then everybody freaked the fuck out. Not for nothing. Like, you should freak the fuck out. You should fight Trump. But, like, the cycle is going to repeat itself. So, if you guys want to freak out, but, like, also temper your freak out. Grassroots for 20, thank you for the Chip King. Well, Chip Oil. Thank you for the Troil. Grassroots for 20 says, therapy is fucking gay. Go develop an all-consuming drug and alcohol problem and then go to therapy for that like a man. Thank you. That sounds like a more masculine approach to the scenario. The drama is more fun than debate and Geopol. The peasants love the circus. You're saying that literally the entire COG is saying don't do drama. Literally all the veteran community members are like, don't do the drama. So I'm actually getting the opposite prescription from my community. Therapy isn't for women. Connor, it's just for you to get your brain cleared out. You're way too judgmental about it. It's just speaking to a person about things that bother you. I don't have a problem with therapy per se. Matter of fact, I do have a therapy. Hold on. Pause. I do have a therapy appointment, but it's with the VA because I'm not spending $100 out of pocket on therapy myself, and it's in early August. So with the VA, if you want to kill yourself, you need to like wait a month before you can have your therapy appointment before you decide whether or not to kill yourself. I'm not going to kill myself, and I'm going to therapy. It's just going to take a fucking while. And by the way, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to go there. I'm going to talk to a female therapist, and then I'm going to go, yeah, I'm codependent and anxious. I value my value based off of whether or not I have an attractive, intellectually stimulating partner. And when I don't have an attractive, intellectually stimulating partner, it bugs me subconsciously. And it drives me to want an attractive and an intellectually stimulating partner. And then I'm anxious, meaning that when I'm in a relationship, I like to have a solid communication basis for the relationship. And she's going to be like, yeah, work on that. And I'll go, okay. Did we solve anything? Is anything different? Except for I'm a little bit more self-aware. It's really, it's not going to change that much. It's really not. Sorry, y'all. I want you to grab these pelvic thrusts. True. I want a Connor therapy stream. Okay. Do a little squirm, make a little love down tonight. Whoop, 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 whoop. True. The only content I notice being different is music that makes me want to do things. Kill yourself or have sex. Do a physical therapy stream. You can definitely use it. That's true. I will do physical therapy streams. It's Friday. Booby Bear has the zoomies. True. I'm a little bit more caffeinated than I normally am. iCup for 10 says, I mentioned rare earth minerals because China is restricting our access to it. They're needed to rebuild missiles, and this might explain the renewed commitment towards Ukrainian efforts, which I'm in favor of. Based, and thank you for the super chat. Philip Collier says, just enjoy your life. Don't be hung up on the past. Be here now, and things will work out. Well, Philip Collier, I relatively am. I just spent the past 48 hours with my children. I had an amazing time. My house is a mess. It's covered in cardboard, styrofoam, and basically packing materials for a bed frame that I actually have an extra bed frame, so that's destroyed. We had cookies, we had pizza, we had some vegetables. We had spaghetti. We had a good time. Man. We ate grub, we hung out, we played video games, we played with the dogs. There was a giant grasshopper on the outside of my house. I had a good time. So, hold up. Rob says, are you feeling these issues or intellectualizing that self-reflection game recognizes game, baby? Probably both. Well, QC John says, read my comment above, Connor. That's how I think you've changed, not a hard change. All right, well, QC John is blue. Where's the next well, QC John statement? Connor, I said yes because I'm happy you are covering more right-leaning content. Okay, that's good. That's a positive change. Well, it's summer and the kids aren't in school, so he's going to leave early to hang out with the kids. Not today, though. I'm linking what I'm saying to the uninviting I'm a lib, they think like me. Okay. I also made a comment about the change not being bad. Okay, good. Oof, that was my exact fear. I said for months that when they didn't need you anymore, the libs would kick the never-Trumpers to the curb. That's fucking lame. Well, yeah. Happens, though. We all saw it coming. If y'all watched the meeting with Zelensky, it was genuinely hard to get through. Trump sounded so fucking stupid. Yes. I'm fine with changing content, but I wish you'd make more friends. Yes, I should be... I have limited myself by hanging out with the libs for so long that I need to go hang out with some rightoids, which is going to piss off the libs even more. The libs didn't leave Connor. The organizers of LibCon didn't want drama at LibCon. It makes perfect sense. Connor being base will bring Connor back into a fold with non-retarded libs. There we go. Thank you. Delvonian, good morning. Are you sure it's wise to bring up potential women publicly to a community of parasocial internet autists before anything concrete has manifested? I'd be weirded out if I were them. Number one, I don't even think they know necessarily my job yet because we haven't dated. Number two, I don't care. It's a part of the job. So for instance, I think that Hutch said that he used to be very transparent about his personal affairs, and then he stopped being transparent about his personal affairs because his community got parasocial and weird. And so you guys, to my knowledge, haven't stalked my ex-wife. You guys, to my knowledge, haven't stalked my ex-girlfriend. And if you did, maybe I would be more cautious about this. But so far, I'm a very open book person. I was very open about when I was married. I was very open about my kids. I was very open about my relationships. I was very open about my friendships. So realistically, nothing has changed. My life has just gotten more turbulent. Officer Nasty for 5 says therapy and or liquor funds. Thank you, King. Appreciate you. Did you see Trump selling early access to his Truth Social post? No, that's kind of funny. The President of the United States has a Patreon. That's funny. Grassroots 20 says, I'd rather live in a society with unhinged, violent, emotionally fucked up people than a society of people who go to therapy. Based again, King. Thank you for encouraging my bad behavior. I appreciate it. Fine, keep being toxically masculine and everything will be great. Thanks, Rodney. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Connor, if you stream yourself doing therapy or talk about it, I'm stealing shit out of your house to recoup my super chat money and giving it to Andrew Wilson. Okay. Solidus says, I like critiquing the right wing more. Okay, so, some people have said, I'm going to end the poll because I feel like we have some shit posters coming in. But it looks like half of you said, yes, it has changed versus no, it's not. But then it looks like half of the people who said that it's changed are saying you like the change because we shifted away from drama and towards right-wing content and towards a little bit of Geopol. So that's actually that's less hurtful. If you guys had been like, no, your content prior to the drama kicked fucking ass and your content after the drama sucks dick, here's why. And it was something that I felt like I actually was fucking up on, then I would care more. But I'm okay with that. North is mad at Connor. Yes. North is mad at me because of the Destiny bridge burn. He felt like there wasn't enough evidence for the bridge burn, and I disagreed. And then we fought about it. Connor and Brad Palumbo stand alone as the only two people that seem to not be brain rotted. Andy B, I feel you. Like when I heard Brad Palumbo identify as an independent, I'm like, that does make more sense because even though he has Republican or conservatarian fucking leanings, did I lose connection? Are you guys still there? Okay, chat's still moving, but it looks like I might have temporarily lost connection. So let me know if you guys can still hear me. But yeah, Brad Palumbo identifying as an independent, I think is more, it's more sensible. And obviously I am like a Brad Palumbo conservatarian. Like I think the Republicans are right about some things, but I think the party itself are actually filled with pieces of shit. And then watching JD Vance, oh my God. Man, if you guys want to see me get fucking triggered and get fucking pissed off, check out my JD Vance coverage from yesterday. It was horrific. Absolutely horrific. I'm not a stalker, but I'm not that far away. Okay, well, don't kill me or my girlfriends or my family. That would be appreciated. It would be appreciated if none of my fans murdered me. Conserve, you mean Sweet Little Bean food shops? Yeah, dude. Gross. That was one of the things that was like shocking to me. I'll say shocking to me. But watching a substantial amount of the Destiny orbit now, including North, interacting with food shops, like she's just another Korean, and he's pretty cool. Yeah. Yep. He's good. Yeah, refresh the page. Refresh. Still chugging? Okay, let me fuck with my internet connection real quick. If I disappear for a second, I'll be right back, I promise. Okay. I just jammed the cable in a little bit harder. So hopefully that helps with the connection. CoffeeZilla made a video covering what? What covering what? Anyways, after refreshing. Yes, I'm back in live chat. Well, let me thank the people who have donated already. Thank you, Grassroots, for your chips. I do appreciate it, King. And let's take a look. Vazraka with the gifted, Grassroots with the 20, iCup with the 10, Sapient Green with the 50 DKK, 5 from Officer Nasty, and 20 from Grassroots. Thank you, Kings and Queens. Are you guys ready to start the content? I'm going to do a little poll. What should we do right now? More parasocial yapping. Start the Geopol. Because we're going to lose a few. There's going to be a few people when we start the Geopol. They're going to be like, news, current events, gross. I'm here for parasocial yapping. So I'll let you guys decide for a second while I text Dan Pace and see if he's available. Dan, today? Question mark? All right. More parasocial yapping so far is winning at 80%. Okay. What else can I talk about that's parasocial? I'm very excited about sci-fi, Counterpoint Sci-Fi. So with Counterpoint Sci-Fi, I think I told you that a few videos took off. And, oh, Dan Pace is available today too. That's cool. So... up to you, King. So Counterpoint Sci-Fi, I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. Counterpoint Star Wars, I think, is a little bit slower because I keep having to fight on the copyright stuff. So Star Wars is not only aggressive about copyright in general, but they've been particularly aggressive with copyright in reference to Andor. And then Sci-Fi with The Expanse, they have not been aggressive at all. Sometimes they will literally just let me post The Expanse content completely unchallenged. Sometimes I get recognized by a little copyright bot and then I challenge it and then they release it immediately. And so as a result, I've been able to keep up with the Expanse videos, relatively speaking, although I did miss 2 weeks recently. But I've been keeping up with the Expanse videos and some of them fucking took off. And so as a result, I think I told you, I got 1/6 of the monetization. Cool beans. Dan is coming over at 1 p.m. for the videos. So we are cooking with sci-fi, and I expect Counterpoint Sci-Fi to be monetized by the end of the year, maybe even as early as September. And then as a result, we'll have another channel that we can cook with where we can bring in some extra cash. So I'm ecstatic about that. Kids are doing good. Ex-wife is still kind of a jerk sometimes, but she's, unfortunately, she's getting hotter. It's very annoying. What I mean by that is sometimes in a depressive funk, your exes will eat their feelings, and then as a result, they'll get like fatter and uglier, and then you can be like, you know, she kind of sucked, and she got fatter and uglier. Unfortunately, my wife took all of her feelings, and she channeled it into working out. So now she was always hot. I always found her attractive, but now she's getting hotter. It's kind of annoying, kind of pissing me off, but it's okay. I'm working out too, so I hope she's getting annoyed too. Then, like I said, with parasocial yapping, went out with the Brazilian chick for the coffee thing. That was cool. We're still texting. She's cool. I don't think she's my wife though, and I kind of want to I want to date to find my wife, my next wife, my next ex-wife. And so like I said, I'm talking to this veterinarian doctor, and I'm talking to this random gorgeous girl that fucking matched with me this morning. So, you said, where is the channel linked? I think it's probably in the homepage, but I'll go ahead and just link it to you guys now. Counterpoint Star Wars. Oh, God, I fucking love this too. The Aldani heist was so sick. Apparently my copyright got released for Counterpoint Star Wars. And so the Aldani heist got released today. I fucking love the Aldani heist from Andor. And then I'll link Counterpoint Sci-Fi as well. But truth be told, Kings and Queens, that's all I got. There's nothing really else going on. Daddy's looking for his new wife. And that's about it. Daddy's looking for his next ex-wife. That's all that's happening. All right. So honestly, I think I'm probably going to start the content in a second. Where's the channel linked? I just posted both links. Get her on HRT. I'm on week 3 in Woo. Is this boomer muted or what? Refresh. Refresh again. Yeah, my hardline connection is in. Yeah, Andor is so good. Dude, the Aldani heist was so fucking sick. Did my phone break? No. I'm a little behind, but I would love to see Connor do a stream with Dr. K. Me too. Based. I'll sub even though I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy. Sub to the sci-fi one if you like the sci-fi one. Don't ever call yourself daddy again or I'm unsubbing everywhere and snarking you. Okay, father? Rodney Hobbs says, I don't see you as daddy. I see you more as a palatable political enemy. Perfect. Perfect. That's what I wanted. Anyways, I think that's enough parasocial bullshit. Let's fucking get into the content. Even though it's Geopol, we'll probably lose a few viewers, but that's okay. We should eat our geopolitical broccoli. So. You ready? You ready? You ready? You ready? I'm ready. Woo! Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I would argue a real Republican. I'm trying to be a rhino, a Republican who is honest, has integrity, nuance, and objectives. And today is a geopolitics day. We are going to have Mr. Preston Stewart, a trusted internet geopolitical analyst, and we are going to be taking a look at the United States moving towards ground operations in Iran because we cannot get Iran to the table. We've been trying to get them to the table. So, in order to make this segment as sensible as possible, we're going to talk about the new rounds of strikes that come with the failed negotiations, and then we're going to be taking a look at the United States getting ready for ground operations. I pray to God that we are not involved in ground operations in Iran, but we are logistically setting up for it. So, let's take a look.
Didn't look good at the time. Hormuz. I mean, in just the past few days, the United States has struck around 300 targets, and Iran has fired as many as 500 drones and missiles at U.S. and allied locations across the region. I mean, we had the memorandum of understanding. I don't think anybody was actually optimistic about the direction that was going. We covered it on this channel. Didn't look good at the time. Right now, we are seeing the fallout as effectively what's happening here is Iran says they control the strait. It is up to them where and when ships go through. The United States says no, and shooting ensues. So it's pretty clear that right now the sole focus in this conflict is control over the Strait of Hormuz. So these U.S. strikes did not pick back up because of the Iranian nuclear program. They didn't pick back up because of the Iranian ballistic missile program or support for their proxies. These new waves of strikes took place because Iran exerted their control over this key waterway. Now, looking at the strikes that played out last night, U.S. Central Command issued a statement saying, quote, they've completed a new wave of offensive strikes against Iran, hitting dozens of targets at multiple locations with precision munitions to degrade Iran's ability to continue attacking international shipping flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM forces struck Iranian military air defense systems, coastal radar sites, missile and drone capabilities, and small boats using U.S. fighter aircraft, naval vessels, one-way attack drones, and one-way attack sea drones for the first time. Hopefully we get some footage or specifications on that. This has been an interesting one. They say the Strait of Hormuz is a vital maritime corridor for global trade. Iran does not control it. U.S. forces are postured and prepared to ensure that freedom of navigation remains available to commercial shipping despite Iran's continued unwarranted aggression, harassment, threats, and arbitrary declarations. Now,
So, what I like about this is all the footage in the background. Rodney Hobbs says, I'm out because honestly, this feels like military-industrial complex masturbation. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So, weirdly enough, I think I've told you guys before that I believe the United States is we are not this scrappy, insurgent, American revolutionary, militiaman, yeoman farmer force. We are not libertarian anymore. We arguably have not been libertarian since World War II. And so as a result, what we are is a international global hegemon with a commercial and military empire. And one of the things that I want to point out real quick is the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter Boeing competitor. So I think if you actually look at there was this competition in the thousands and the tens to develop the next generation of Joint Strike Fighter. And so it was going to be stealth. It was going to be vertical takeoff and landing. It was going to be capable of carrying a substantial amount of munitions, both internally for increased stealth capacity, but also on hard points. And weirdly enough, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the Boeing X-32 actually was a better performer in a variety of ways compared to the F-35. But what ended up happening is the X-32 looks goofy as shit because it has this like huge, it looks like a fighter jet with a giant mouth underneath it. Now, this giant mouth is supposed to be pretty good for the vertical takeoff and landing capacity, but it just looks silly. And so I think it's actually been argued, was the X-32 better than the X-35? Okay, hold on. Let's read this. I might be debunking my own myths in real time, but let's read it. I'll say the myth, and then let's see if we can debunk it. The myth was that the X-32 was actually substantially better performing than the F-35, and so they picked the F-35 based on aesthetics. But let's see if I can debunk myself a little bit. The Boeing X-32 was not better than the Lockheed Martin X-35. The X-35 decisively won the Pentagon JSF contract competition because it offered superior aerodynamic performance, a more effective VTOL system, vertical takeoff and landing, and a production-ready design that required fewer structural compromises. Lockheed's X-35 proved it could successfully perform a demanding flight profile that the X-32 could not. It successfully completed a short takeoff, flew to supersonic speeds, and returned to perform a true vertical landing in a single flight. The X-32 struggled with weight issues, and its direct lift system was less capable than the X-35's shaft-driven lift fan. Now, weirdly enough, I think that how do I phrase this? That was part of the criticism, though. The criticism was the shaft-driven lift fan, which was basically something that, like, tilted in order to do the VTOL, was vertical takeoff and landing, was so complex that presented, like, manufacturing problems early in the project's design. Furthermore, the X-35's prototype was much closer in design to the actual production jet, while Boeing realized too late that its original X-32 design needed significant untested modifications to meet requirements. Ultimately, the X-35 edged in engineering, agility, and growth potential led to it becoming the F-35 Lightning II. Well, no matter what, I like my little myth. I like my little story. I could be wrong. Who gives a shit? I just wanted to show you a stealth fighter with a giant smiley face. Now, James for 10PLN said that North is winning. He's definitely, winning the race in reference to hanging out with pedophiles. He's definitely hung out with food shops a lot more than me. So good luck with that. Continuing.
We're going to get into what led up to this wave of hostilities here in a moment, but looking at the Iranian side, because this was not a one-sided attack, the United States carried out strikes. Iran has responded each time. The IRGC said, quote, "The only way to open the Strait of Hormuz for vessels is to end the intervention of the U.S. military in this strait and to respect the sovereignty of countries over their own coastal waters." That is the theme. That is where Iran has dug in. That's where they stand. Now, overnight, Iran says that they carried out a number of launches against targets in Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain. A couple notable claims from Iran. And I want to stress that we have seen some footage and some pictures of things burning. Very clearly, some missiles hit something, whether those were intercepted and caused fires on the ground or actually struck their targets has not yet been verified from what I can tell. But according to the IRGC, they said they hit two U.S.-linked bases, or two U.S. bases in Kuwait. They said they also hit two air bases in Jordan, one, the Prince Hassan Air Base, saying they hit fuel tanks and ammunition depots, and at the Al Araz Air Base, said they hit American fighter jet hangars. Then in Qatar, they say they went after the El Adid Air Base with a 44-missile barrage, with multiple of those missiles getting through. And in Oman, they said they hit multiple radar systems that were monitoring the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE, for their part, says that at least 500 Iranian missiles and drones have been launched over the course of the past couple days in this most recent wave. Again, to stress, we do not have a verified battle damage assessment, and as of today, U.S. satellite imagery providers are still withholding data over those locations in the Middle East. Now, Iran has also claimed that in addition to these strikes, that they were able to inflict a number of U.S. casualties. U.S. Central Command addressed this, saying that there are zero reports of U.S. service members' deaths or injuries in the region. All personnel are now accounted for. Now, diving into why this series of escalations has played out in recent days, the spokesperson for the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs pointed to Clause 5 of the agreement in the Memorandum of Understanding, where he says it is not open to interpretation, and the Americans should not make decisions based on their own interpretation. Now, I'll have the full text of the Memorandum of Understanding linked in the description below, and I'll put up some of it, or I'll put up Clause 5 here on the screen if you want to see what that says. A couple aspects here. It says, quote, "Upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days, only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman, and vice versa." So, in fact, let's pull up a quick map to show you the area we're talking about here, this critical waterway that is the Strait of Hormuz. So we've got live UA map, Iran here on to the north, the top part of the screen. You've got the Persian Gulf here, this body of water, Sea of Oman out to the east. Strait of Hormuz, this contested waterway, very congested and contested waterway here. So this is the area that Iran says that they have territorial control over, they have sovereign control over. The United States is contesting that, but when we look at the Memorandum of Understanding, one of the critiques that we brought up on this channel as well is it kind of kicked this down the road. It said, well, Iran start removing mines, if you would, sometime in the next 30 days, and over the course of the next 60 days, we'll get to it. But if you look at the actual text, and I'll put it back up on the screen here, you can see how, whether you agree with their stance or not, and I do not agree that Iran should exert sovereign control over the Strait of Hormuz. I think this is an international waterway that needs to be governed as such. But when you look at the text, you can see how Iran would view that as it is up to them. It is.
I know we memed about it. Obviously, I'll meme about it again a little bit more. So what this is going to do, what this conflict is going to do in the long term, Iran maps, is it's going to put pressure on the Gulf states to ship shit Western. So right now, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, is Dubai its own country? Or I thought that was the capital. Isn't the capital? Oman. These countries are oil rich, and they need to get their stuff out in order to make a shitload of cash. Kuwait, Iraq, et cetera, et cetera. So what people have talked about is the cheaper option that Saudi Arabia allegedly is already capitalizing on is piping stuff westward so it can get out into the Red Sea or the Mediterranean. That's probably going to be there's going to be a substantial amount of infrastructure investment over the next 2 decades in order to make redundant shit so they can pipe stuff out without Iran being assholes. And if Iran bombs their infrastructure, then they have a case for war. The meme position that I like, which I would straight up do if I could, is north of Abu Dhabi and north of Leva or Sohar. I would straight up start building. I think the estimates were like $500 billion. It would be like $500 billion to actually do. But I would start doing the Trump Canal. You know, we didn't need this thing. It would be redundant. It would be silly. It would be a waste of cash and all that kind of stuff. But I don't like that the Iranians can basically turn the world's energy supply on and off like a light switch whenever they fucking feel like it. So, two long-term suggestions in order to reduce Iran's control of this territory is a canal north of Abu Dhabi and north of Sohar across this peninsula, and then also piping it out west. I know it's silly. 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 Anyways, Jen Winkler for $10 says, gracias for liking the video. And then also somebody yelled at me in order to turn all notifications on. All notifications are on.
Their right to control what goes through and when. Again, the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, quote, instead of allowing Iran to reopen the strait based on the agreement, the Americans have been cheating from the beginning, trying to circumvent the agreed-upon path with Iran through incitement and with the cooperation of regional countries. By doing this, the United States has violated the agreement, jeopardized maritime security, and exacerbated tensions and conflict in the region. Now, again, the key issue here, going back to the map, is that what's happened in recent days is there has been an uptick in traffic. And this is so frustrating and confusing, probably deliberately so. Is the Strait of Hormuz open or is it closed? And the answer is kind of somewhere in the middle. And just in the last 30 days, we've seen the United States, I think last night, the U.S. Central Command announced it is absolutely open. Kind of, maybe. Iran has said that it's closed. It's also not entirely closed. The truth is somewhere in between. It has been for some time. But the issue here is that Iran wants to control all the shipping moving through the northern portion, especially here through Bandar Abbas. And we've seen some satellite imagery recently showing that the bulk of traffic is moving through that area. That is where they can more easily exert control and exact tolls from ships moving through. What we've seen in recent days is more ships trying to move through the south. Many of those were then fired upon by Iran, trying to get them to push further north into their territorial waters. That's the source of contention here. And Iran has been and continues to fire on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. That's a problem. That has to be resolved. And again, that seems like the focus of what this war is all about right now. Now, shifting to U.S. Central Command's assessment of how this is all playing out, they're pushing back on the claims that Iran, I think 2 days ago, said the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. And again, I want to stress, we did not begin the war for this. This was not the core objective. And objectives changed throughout the war, no doubt, but it's notable how much of a backseat things like the Iranian nuclear program, their missile development, which it looks like they were probably digging up some missiles. I don't think that their production facilities are anywhere back to where they could be a viable source of munitions in the near future. But the missile program's not being addressed, the nuclear program not being addressed, the proxy forces not being addressed. Instead, the sole focus is the Strait of Hormuz. All right, so we kind of quickly and quietly gotten there. But U.S. Central Command put out a statement yesterday saying the Strait of Hormuz is open for transit. Quote, pathways for free transit through the Strait of Hormuz remain open. Iran does not control the international waterway used by commercial vessels to globally transport goods and energy. U.S. forces have facilitated the transit of 800 ships and 400 million barrels of crude over the past 2 months, adding that 140 ships have transited the strait in the past 7 days. However,
now, I see several people in my chat saying, let them destroy each other. And I'm going to pretend you're talking about geopolitics instead of talking about pedophiles and snarkers and anti-snarkers warring with each other in the community and or in other places. So let's presume that we're talking about geopolitics. Obviously, that's a fucking problem. if they're sitting on 20% of the world's oil, like oil flow in general, and if 2/3 of the world's oil supply is in this region. So Saudi, I think I've shown you guys this map before. I'll pull it up if you need me to, but they sit on a third of the world's oil supply, approximately, based off of like gigabillions of barrels. And then fucking Iran sits on a third of the world's oil supply, and then Venezuela sits on another one. Now, Venezuela, despite sitting on a third of the world's oil supply, their shit is so dense that it has to be like synthesized a certain way, and it has to be cut with Middle Eastern and North African oil. So despite being an incredibly oil-rich nation, there's complexities in production that they are incapable of capitalizing based off of, partially because of United States sanctions. And I'm pretty sure that us like kidnapping their president and checking their energy supply to Cuba was part of our geopolitical manipulation, saying, hey, we'll let you make money off of oil, but only with our say-so and our buy-in. And so if we control, quote unquote, through geopolitical manipulation, Venezuelan oil and Saudi oil, then realistically that only leaves Iran, quote unquote, out of our control. So we need to check the Iranians because they're currently fucking with our energy supply. Of course, the Iranians are fucking with, quote unquote, our energy supply because we kind of did kill all of their leadership, blow up their Congress, blow up their, their leader, and blow up some of their military sites, and 168, Iranian school children. In America, some people might call that a war crime, but in America, we call that an oopsie doopsie.
However, that has fallen off a cliff a bit. Reuters just reported that 6 vessels passed through the Strait of Hormuz on Sunday, the lowest number in 5 weeks. And we're talking about, going back 5 weeks, that's when the strait was effectively completely closed. So that's the situation we're in right now. Now, in terms of what to watch for going forward, it kind of all hinges on a change here in the United States. Are we going to change our strategy, or are we going to change our goals in this conflict? Iran has made their position pretty clear, and I don't think there's really anyone that genuinely believes that a few more strikes, a couple more days of attacks is going to significantly change their calculation or change what we're able to accomplish here. It kind of boils down to, does the United States, do we increase pressure to try to accomplish our objectives, or do we reduce our expectations? Because we're stuck in this middle ground right now of, we don't want to go all out. We don't want to say put boots on the ground. We don't want to surge additional assets into the region and carry out continuous bombardment for day after day after day, weeks and months on end. We don't want to do that. But we also want to achieve all of our objectives with their nuclear program, their missile program, their support for proxies, and opening the Strait of Hormuz with no limitations. We are in the middle of those two right now, and it's not working. So we've either got this status quo, which from what I can see is trending towards Iran at the very least having a degree of control over the Strait of Hormuz. Again, note that yesterday ships were down to 6 passing through the strait because of the Iranian attacks. So we can yell and scream that the strait is open all we want. But when Iran can take a few actions and shut down shipping right there, that is Iranian control. It's not good. It's not good for us. It's not good for our partners in the region. It's not good for the world, but that's the situation we're in. So if we expect something to change here, outside of just, negotiations are on their way and we have disagreements and maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't, we have to change the pressure. That's it. We have kind of worked ourselves into a bind here. There's no clear solution in sight so long as we continue to carry out kind of the same operations and the same level of pressure and coercion against the Iranian regime that we've been using now for a number of months, and it hasn't gotten us there. So that's what we're watching for here in the coming days, but that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching.
Now, if you listen to JD Vance in reference to what was just said of the current pressure points that we have against the Iranian regime are not working, JD Vance is saying he would prefer to negotiate rather than go to U.S. moving towards ground operations in Iran, which is the next video that we're going to be watching. And he is actually critical of the hawks, both in the administration and outside of the administration, because he believes that, there is a path forward They just need the moderates or the pragmatists within the Iranian regime to reason with the hardliners in the Iranian regime in order to actually get where we need to go. So, bombing the shit out of them, ground operations, all that kind of stuff, it's going to be going in the wrong direction. Now, that being said, I think Preston Stewart has astutely pointed out that whatever we're doing right now is not getting the desired results we want. Iran wants full control of the strait. They want to be able to green light or red light any commercial vessel that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. As a result, we're kind of fucked. You know, we're kind of in their thing. So the meme positions, half meme positions, like piping everything out westward, which would take billions of dollars and decades to complete, or the canal, which would take hundreds of billions of dollars and decades to complete. Those are long-term solutions that aren't going to resolve the energy demands of the planet right now, right? The energy demands of the planet right now, we're kind of fucked. So that means that Trump, regardless of whether or not he chickens out, taco acronym, Trump always chickens out, regardless of whether or not he chickens out, he is trying to leverage the Iranians by preparing for a ground assault. We watched previously a segment on Karg Island, which is an island off of the coast of Iran in which 90% of their oil is loaded. An option has been seizing Karg Island as kind of like a hostage. But then, you know, what we've discussed in that scenario was the fact that that would be like a doomsday scenario for Iran. They would lose their capacity to make payroll. They would lose their capacity to run their military. They would lose their capacity to keep the lights on in Iran. So at that point, if we militarily seize Karg Island and the Iranian regime says, well, fuck it, we're all going to die or get decapitated or we're all going to get fucking overthrown anyways, we might as well fuck up the region before we get killed. At that point, they might hit the desalinization plants, which would basically put all of the Gulf states in perilous danger of dying of thirst, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. But then it would also, if they hit the energy infrastructure, well, then everybody's energy is fucked. It's not just Iran that's fucked, it's everyone that's fucked. So, kind of tough. Kind of tough. Anyways, we're going to move into U.S. move towards grounds operations in Iran. Once again, if I had to bet dollars to donuts, I could be fucking wrong, but I would bet that Trump chickens out. But we could be doing preparations in order to seize Karg Island. We could be doing preparations in order to seize military control of the southern coast of Iran. Let's take a look at what Mr. Stewart has to say about it.
Are back on the table with Iran. The United States just began a new wave of strikes, marking the 6th consecutive day of combat operations, but there's no indication that a few more airstrikes is going to force an Iranian surrender or anything resembling that. In turn, we now have new reporting that President Trump is considering a few different options that could really ratchet up the pressure. Now, the U.S. strikes in Iran over the last couple of days have focused on military targets, things like command centers, air defense sites, missile and drone capabilities, and coastal surveillance facilities, with the intent of degrading Iran's ability to threaten maritime activity moving through the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, the blockade is now in effect as well, and right away, the United States went about enforcing that. Just yesterday, we got notification that the U.S. used a Hellfire missile fired into a ship's smokestack to stop that vessel from transiting. It looks like it was headed to Iran, was not abiding by the blockade that was in effect. Now, the Wall Street Journal put out a report earlier today saying that President Trump is leaning towards expanding U.S. military operations in Iran, and they focus on 3 different scenarios that he's considering playing out. The first option includes expansion of airstrikes, and I would read into that as going after Iranian infrastructure, things we have not really hit yet, or at least not focused on quite yet. The second is going after a key nuclear site, namely Pickaxe Mountain. And the third would be sending in ground forces to seize Iranian islands near the Strait of Hormuz. I am surprised that that is still in the conversation. Personally, I don't think there's a domestic appetite for boots on the ground in Iran, certainly not for increased U.S. casualties. And the last piece here, I don't know what we accomplish doing that we're not able to accomplish with the blockade. Maybe it would be a little faster, but far, far riskier. Now, the Wall Street Journal said Trump hosted a Situation Room meeting Tuesday evening to discuss the potential seizure of Harg Island and other territory along the Strait of Hormuz using U.S. troops, as well as the potential bombing of a tunnel complex at Pickaxe Mountain, a nuclear-linked site the U.S. has yet to target.
Muted. Professional streamer. So one of the things that is not frustrating per se, but basically it's one of the things that needs to be noted. And my shit is frozen right now, unfortunately. I hope you guys can still hear me. Can you still hear me? Is shit still working? Is shit still working? I'll give it a second. But basically, with damn, for real? Damn, this sucks. My internet's fucking up. Or my CPU is fucking up. I exited everything but the webcam. Your audio is fine. God damn it. Okay. Well, I might need to open up Task Manager, but I'll try to make the point that I was making. Somebody said in chat, they couldn't confirm it, but Kuwait or Iran struck Kuwait desal plants. I did Google it, and apparently this news story is only 2 hours old, where a Kuwaiti power station that also is a desalinization plant got struck. And this is making everybody incredibly nervous because 86% of drinking water for Oman, 70% of drinking water for Saudi Arabia, and 90% of drinking water for Kuwait comes from desalinization. And so desal is obviously where they basically pump salted water from the ocean into a power plant, and then they scrub it of the salt. That way they can drink it. So if you're fucking with 90% of the drinking water in some Gulf countries, and Iran technically has the ballistic missile capability to knock those offline at any point, then yeah, that's gonna fucking suck. So get ready to send tens of billions of water bottles to the Middle East and North Africa if this shit fucking escalates, right? Now, let's see. Is my Google Chrome completely unresponsive? I think it is. I think I have to start Task Manager. Sorry, guys. If I get knocked out, it is what it is. It says only 30% of my shit is currently under usage. Why is my shit so fucked up right now? Anyways, I guess I'll end task and reload. I can end Discord. I don't need to talk to anybody right now. Split cam, I can restart. Sorry, guys. We're going to go into a little bit of a technical loop here where I'm going to need to restart some programs. Gonna need to restart some programs. And I don't want to restore because I think that might have overloaded my shit. YouTube. Preston Stewart. And let's just do one video. That way, hopefully it doesn't fuck up. And let's go back to Ukraine has started winning 28,000. Oh, here we go.
Well, it looks like ground operations are back on the table with Iran, the United blockade that was in effect. Now, the Wall Street Journal put out a report earlier today saying that President Trump is leaning towards expanding U.S. military operations in Iran, and they focus on 3 different scenarios that he's considering playing out. The first option includes expansion of airstrikes, and I would read into that as going after Iranian infrastructure, things we have not really hit yet, or at least not focused on quite yet. The second is going after a key nuclear site, namely Pickaxe Mountain, and the third would be sending in ground forces to seize Iranian islands near the Strait of Hormuz. I am surprised that that is still in the conversation. Personally, I don't think there's a domestic appetite for boots on the ground in Iran, certainly not for increased U.S. casualties. And the last piece here, I don't know what we accomplish doing that we're not able to accomplish with the blockade. Maybe it would be a little faster, but far, far riskier. Now, the Wall Street Journal said Trump hosted a Situation Room meeting Tuesday evening to discuss the potential seizure of Harg Island and other territory along the Strait of Hormuz using U.S. troops, as well as the potential bombing of a tunnel complex at Pickaxe Mountain, a nuclear-linked site the U.S. has yet to target. They added that expanding airstrikes against more targets in Iran, including energy sites, also remains a possibility. That seems to be the most likely. That is the easiest one for the U.S. to go after in the short term, and it is the one that we are seeing the most pushback to from Iran. Just today, we had notes that were it's kind of the exact same statement, just phrased slightly differently, put out by the Supreme Leader's advisor, Mokber, as well as the spokesperson for the IRGC and the spokesperson for the Iranian army. All of them, in some way, shape, or form, said if the United States goes after our infrastructure, we will turn the entire region to rubble. So that seems to be the one that they expect the United States to pursue first. So again, when we're talking about the expansion of strikes, it would be beyond explicitly military targets. In this case, as President Trump has mentioned in recent days, going after roads, bridges, rail lines, energy infrastructure, electrical grids, and oil processing facilities. Iran, in the past, when their oil infrastructure has been hit, I believe it was Israel that hit it earlier in the war, not the United States, but I could be incorrect there. When those facilities were hit, the immediate Iranian response was going after oil infrastructure in the neighboring countries in the Gulf region. So they have done that in the past. We are seeing Iranian drones and missiles appear to get through in some of these retaliatory strikes. The battle damage assessments are anyone's guess. You know what? I'll put up some imagery here. We're getting some Chinese satellite imagery showing that, it looks like some of these are getting through and striking U.S. bases. So they still have some capacity. In fact, as we go to record, Iran is making a claim that they destroyed a U.S. Patriot radar in Jordan. Strong claims require strong evidence, and we haven't seen that quite yet. But there certainly are Iranian munitions getting through and striking. Now, could they get enough through to, as they say, quote, turn the entire region to rubble? I don't know, but that's something that our regional partners are going to have to balance as we look to expand strikes. Moving on to the second option here, Pickaxe Mountain. The Wall Street Journal says this is a heavily fortified underground site consisting of tunnels built into granite, some 300 to 475 feet beneath the surface of a mountain peak, far deeper than Iran's nuclear enrichment sites at Natanz and Fordo, which the U.S. and Israel bombed last summer. So quick note there, we have not gone after this location. And one of the reasons for that is it is not estimated to be operational in its current state. The Institute for Science and International Security has some satellite imagery that I'll put up on the screen here, and they ran through in a recent article kind of what we believe is going on at Pickaxe right now. They said, quote, it remains unclear when Pickaxe Mountain could be operational based only on assessments of satellite imagery. It is also unclear if Iran still plans on installing a large-scale assembly facility given the destruction of Iran's centrifuge program, including Iran's ability to make centrifuge components needed for an assembly plant. Nonetheless, if Iran starts to rebuild its centrifuge manufacturing capability, it could plan to install a smaller centrifuge assembly facility in Pickaxe Mountain to serve a nuclear weapons program. So Pickaxe, to me, sounds an awful lot like if they decide to continue to pursue nuclear weapons, this is a location they could do it. But according to the good ISIS, as they call themselves, there's no indication that it's operational right now.
Yeah. And sorry if I'm not commenting as much, but I'm like with Preston 100%. It's like, could we seize Karg Island? Could we take coastal Iran? Could we deploy tens of thousands of American troops? Yeah. And weirdly enough, the thing about it is Donald Trump is already like a lame duck, and one of his chief levers of power is commander-in-chief of the United States military. So he might just yank on that lever of power out of boredom and desire to be seen as a tough guy. So, it would totally fuck shit up. We would probably be risking the entire region's water supply and energy infrastructure in order to assuage Trump's ego. I don't put it beyond the realm of possibility, but I do put it beyond the realm of probability. I think there are enough people like J.D. Vance who are concerned about American, Republican political future that they would be strongly against it. I think CENTCOM and the military advisors would be pretty strongly against like an aggressive military approach with no clear objective besides reopening the strait. I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail. So unfortunately, I just agree with Preston. No critiques.
Added complexity there is, and I don't want to, a couple times, we're going to have this in the next two instances, but I don't want to downplay U.S. military capabilities, but it looks like this could be an even harder site to go after than Fordo, than the Isfahan facility, excuse me. So That's deep underground. This one seems to be even deeper and even harder target to penetrate. So just something to keep in mind when we're looking at President Trump's options here. This one likely a little harder to accomplish than the first. So just the expansion of strikes into Iranian infrastructure across the country. The third one here is the seizing of Harg Island. In fact, let's go to a map real quick to show you where these last two are. We've got the live UA map here, Iran in the middle of the screen. The Pickaxe Mountain is in Isfahan province, so right here in the middle of the screen. And if you go north of Isfahan, we've got Natanz, and just a little ways south in Natanz, in this general area here, is Pickaxe Mountain. So it's a hidden site, right? It's built into a mountain. It's not like there's a big entrance sign, but we do have the satellite imagery to know exactly where it is. Nonetheless, we have been able to put aircraft over much of Iran at this point, but that would require, if we're talking about dropping bunker buster type bombs, that requires manned aircraft overhead. So just recognize the risk associated with that. Yes, Midnight Hammer went off without a hitch. However, we did see right when the ceasefire went into place 45 days ago, something like that, was right on the tail end of a number of U.S. aircraft being hit, some being shot down by Iranian air defense. So there is still a risk of flying manned aircraft through Iranian airspace. The last one we're going to get into here is in Harg Island. It's the northeastern portion of the Persian Gulf. So zooming out a little bit. Again, Iran to the top of the screen here. Strait of Hormuz, this narrow bend in the waterway, Persian Gulf, and then up here we have Harg Island. Now, talking to that, the Wall Street Journal said, quote, attempting to seize Harg Island, Iran's main oil export hub, would harm the country's oil industry, but it would also put American forces directly in harm's way. Troops would be easy targets for Iranian missiles and drones. They quoted retired Marine General Frank McKenzie as saying, quote, that's something we should think about doing because possession of Iranian soil would be a significant factor in future negotiations with Iran, end quote. I don't think this is a good option. Now, again, not to underestimate the capabilities of the U.S. military, we can put boots on the ground just about anywhere in the world on relatively short notice, whether this is some sort of airborne operation, air assault operation, or amphibious operation. We could get people on Harg Island, no doubt. That said, I don't know what we accomplish by doing that. All right, so the focus, especially at the beginning of the war, was talking about if we take some territory, especially Harg Island, where the majority of their crude exports come from, it would shut down Iran's access to that market. But that's what we're doing with the blockade, right? The blockade is in effect. We are supposed to be right now, and we're getting reports from CENTCOM that it is effective, stopping any Iranian ships moving, or any ships moving to or from Iranian ports. That is still risky. Blockades are not without risk, but it is significantly less risk to American service members than putting boots on the ground just off the coast of Iran. On top of that, there are a few areas where Iran would...
Yeah, just back and pressing up. Sorry if my commentary is a little lackluster. But as Short points out, as Preston points out, the issue isn't taking them, it's holding them against an onslaught of artillery and drones. So the hope would be if we communicated with the Iranian regime and we said, hey, we're going to take Harg Island, fuck you. But it's just leverage so we can get you back to the table. Right? Then the hope would be that they take that seriously. They don't bomb the Gulf. They don't bomb the energy. They don't bomb the desalination plants. And then we negotiate effectively like, hey, you need to play ball on the Strait of Hormuz, and we'll give you Harg Island back. Right? But as Short points out, as Preston points out, is what you're doing is you're giving the Iranians valid military targets that they can strike without moral objection from anyone in the international community. As much as people like might view Iranians as assholes, that doesn't mean that they don't have the right to defend particularly their sovereign territory. So if they basically glassed, 3,000 American troops who were occupying Harg Island and destroyed the infrastructure, they could do so without international objection. And so that's kind of the, where once again, unfortunately, I'm just agreeing with Preston because Preston is saying, what are we getting out of Harg that we're not getting out of the blockade? Jen Winkler says, will Connor ban me? Yes or no? No, I'm not going to ban you, Jen Winkler. Why would I ban you? Despite us being on other sides of the fence in reference to the DGG question, You say that if I grew out my hair, cut my hair, and talked about politics for 3 15-minute segments per day, then I would have a successful Midas touch career. I need that kind of ego boost, you know? So, just because we disagree on the SQ, the Steven question, that doesn't mean that I don't value you as a chatter. I value you as a chatter. Oh, but you're saying you said something spicy earlier. Okay. I'll go read your spicier comment earlier. Then we'll see if I ban you. Hold on.
Be expecting U.S. forces. Some of the nuclear facilities, you have to expect that they're keeping an eye out for anything in and around there. More likely, however, the Strait of Hormuz, some of the islands here, and then Harg Island. So there's, yes, an element of surprise, but you have to assume in some of these locations, it is where Iran would expect some sort of ground operation. So my personal assessment, there's not a lot of gain to taking that island or attempting to take that island, but a lot of risk that we would be assuming in a very short period of time. Now, the Iranian response so far, as mentioned, has primarily focused on what they would do if the United States went after their energy infrastructure. But we also got some notes about kind of their priorities. The senior spokesperson for the Iranian armed forces earlier today said, quote, "We insist on the withdrawal of the United States from the region, and we will never back down from the Strait of Hormuz." The Strait of Hormuz continues to be a key focus of Iran in all of this, with the IRGC spokesperson kind of echoing that, saying that he reiterated that under no circumstances will Iran allow the United States to interfere in the Strait of Hormuz, adding, quote, "This is Iran's invincible red line." So again, the current path of strikes against military targets in Iran, it didn't really change anything at the beginning of the war. No doubt Iran is weaker today in terms of military capabilities than they were when this war started. But what we're trying to do is get Iran to the negotiating table to affect things like their nuclear program, control over the Strait of Hormuz, their support for proxies, and their missile program. Hitting a few more military targets is very unlikely to change that calculus, so it's not surprising that President Trump is looking at additional options. Now, the first and easiest one to pursue is, of course, the blockade. That's in effect, but that takes a while. It's very slow. We know it was having an impact on the Iranian economy when the ceasefire went into place. It can get the job done, probably, or at least can force Iran back to the negotiating table. Whether or not that's enough to actually see them cede on some of their demands, time will tell. But it looks like, based off of these three options being presented to President Trump that he's actively considering right now, he's looking for a more immediate solution. So this is not a 6, 9, 12-month problem that he wants to kind of wait out the Iranian economy. He's looking for something to wrap this up in the near term. In turn, that's talking about expanding strikes to hit Iranian infrastructure, possibly landing boots on the ground in a couple different areas to hold Iranian terrain, and then lastly, going after Pickaxe Mountain, one of the Iranian nuclear sites that has not yet been targeted by the United States or Israel. We'll see. I would expect some sort of change in strategy here in the coming days. Those three appear to be on the table. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Weirdly enough, as understated as Preston Stewart is, that is like a terrifying analysis. The reason why it's terrifying is because, Karg Island, Pickaxe Mountain, southern coast of Iran, all that stuff, it will put United States troops... Now, saber rattling is its own strategy. That's actually what I kind of expect, because Trump always chickens out the taco thing. I hope I'm not proven wrong. But hopefully what Trump is actually doing, because he always likes to overstate his position and then negotiate backwards. Hopefully him saying, oh yeah, I'm considering taking Karg Island. I'm considering blowing up Iranian infrastructure. I'm considering targeting the heads of the state again. I'm considering more advanced airstrikes. I'm considering destroying Pickaxe Mountain. Hopefully even Preston Stewart and media outlets covering that publicly makes the Iranians a little bit nervous that they're in line for another series of, really, really rough fucking airstrikes. Now, they've been able to weather them so far, but can they weather them in perpetuity? And is that the kind of thing that could force them back to the negotiating table? My fear is that if that is insufficient to force the Iranians back to the negotiating table, well, then Trump does have a strong incentive in order to act immediately. And, this dude is so bored and feckless And, you know, he randomly he'll be like, oh, well, what I'm doing right now isn't working, so I'm just going to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Well, what happens if him throwing shit at the wall is Karg Island? That's my concern. So, that is my concern. So, in summary, shit be scary right now. Okay? Shit be scary right now. All right? Now, what we're going to do, though, is we're still going to be sticking with Geopol because I am a big fan of Geopol. But one of the things that I wanted to check out that I think is pretty impressive and terrifying are two things. So, Ukraine killed 28,000 Russian troops in 1 month. Now, I'm not saying that they can keep up that momentum in perpetuity. They might literally run out of Russians to kill. But you got to think about that. That's like 300, what is it, 28,000 per month over the course of a year would be 360,000 dead Russians. Holy shit. Like that's a fuckload of dead Russians. And so when you're talking about that combined with the intermediate drone strikes that are happening in the Kherson, Crimean, and Zaporozhian oblasts, the southern shit. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and pull up a map just so I can show you guys real quick. Ukraine map. So what the Ukrainian skeptics are saying is that Russia currently occupies 90% of Donetsk, all of Luhansk. They're outside of Kharkiv, so they own some of this northern territory right here. They have a foothold in Dnipro. They own Zaporozhia. They own Kherson and they own Crimea. And that is a substantial amount of territory to occupy that the Ukrainians have not been able to pierce and have not been able to take back. The Ukrainians had multiple offensives in like 23 and 24 that failed. And so as a result, what the Ukrainians did, because they lost so many troops and they lost so many armored vehicles attempting to do offensives into these regions, is they focused on their intermediate drone game. So instead of having FPVs, which are considered close-range drones, instead of having ballistic missile, cruise missile style explosive technology, which they're currently using against Russian energy infrastructure, they have focused on intermediate range drones, meaning that they can launch from the city of Kherson, which they've seized, even though they don't control this oblast, and they can hit Crimea. So what's happened, allegedly, is between intermediate drone production being ramped up to the fucking billionth degree and FPV drone technology being ramped up to the billionth degree, not only have they wiped out 28,000 Russian troops, which the Ukrainians claim, I understand Andrei Sondolescu says, what are the facts of the situation? They claim they have FPV footage verifying every single one of these deaths. So allegedly, they have time-stamped footage of them killing 28,000 Russian troops, okay? And or blowing up 28,000 Russian targets that include trucks and fucking all the overland logistical shit that they use in order to move stuff from Donetsk to Crimea. Also, Crimea, there's a bridge, the Kerch Bridge over here. And allegedly, bear in mind, we should take everything with a huge grain of salt, but there were thousands of ethnic Russian civilians who were lined up on the Kerch Bridge in order to move into this Russian territory, Krasnodar. They're going into Krasnodar because they're worried about Crimea falling. So typically you don't evacuate when you're winning. So I'm not saying that it's not possible that these are just the more prudent Crimean residents. I'm not saying it's not possible that Ukraine is exaggerating what they're doing. But if you listen to Ukrainian sources, if you take a look at the FPV footage evidence, they are fucking shit up in Kherson and Zaporozhian Oblast to the point that it's making Crimeans nervous. Now, I'm going to read these super chats, and then we're going to get into that content. Doobie for 10 seems nuts to me for the U.S. to wait, seems nuts to trust the US or Israel to negotiate in good faith. They're treating the war like something they can turn on and off at will, like they did when the Iron Dome was running low. Yes. And then Doobie for 10 says, if it can be proven that Ukraine had something to do with the ladybug kicking the bucket, I'll support funding them for the next 10 years. That's a deep cut reference, although I don't think they would kill Lindsey Graham. So, okay. That's a deep cut reference. That's kind of funny. So, Lindsey Graham, for those of you who don't know, neoconservative war hawk, huge supporter of Ukraine. He allegedly has freckles or moles around his butt, and he was a closeted but not fully closeted homosexual. And so apparently multiple DC male prostitutes have testified that when they commented on the moles and or freckles around his butthole, he said, oh, they're my little ladybugs. So, Lindsey Graham, God rest his soul, had freckles and or moles on his butt that he referred to his good luck ladybugs around his butt. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's unlikely that Lindsey Graham was killed by Ukraine because he was a prominent Ukrainian advocate. Apparently, a substantial amount of chat, this is the first time that they've heard this comment. All right, let's back up. Let's do some Geopol.
1,000 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded in June. Now, for some context, that's more casualties than the U.S. suffered over 20 years in Afghanistan, which is no wonder that there's more and more rumors about Russian mobilization. Now, this is happening alongside the ongoing Ukrainian middle and deep strike campaign, so it's not as though they said, let's stop killing the soldiers at the front and focus on the refineries. No, the refineries are getting hit every day. The ships in the Sea of Azov and the trucks trying to supply the front are getting hit every day. On top of that, Ukraine is racking up kills all along the front. According to the Ukrainian Defense Minister Fedorov, he said, quote, over the course of the month, the defense forces hit more than 200,000 enemy targets. The number of targets hit at a distance of more than 50 kilometers has almost doubled. He says the main focus is on the enemy's logistics. Destroying warehouses, transport, and supply routes reduces the enemy's ability to supply its units. The amount of drone strikes happening every day has long since become overwhelming. It is a shocking amount. The ones that we're seeing primarily are when a ship gets hit or when a plane gets hit in Crimea or air defense assets. But every single day there are hundreds, if not more, videos coming out showing FPV or bomber strikes against Russian soldiers. To that end, Fedorov said in June, the Ukrainian military eliminated or seriously wounded almost 28,000 Russian soldiers. So the comparison with Afghanistan is around 24,000. 25,000 American service members killed or wounded during that war. But that is all casualties, according to, let me make sure I have the source correct here. This is the Defense Casualty Analysis System. So from the Pentagon, that's the number they come up with. The 28,000 coming from Ukraine is all verified on video and is killed or seriously wounded.
Yeah, this is an important thing. I think you guys know that I'm a moderate Ukrainian shill. Actually, I'm a pretty enthusiastic Ukrainian shill, but it is what it is. So I want you to think about this real quick. The global war on terror. Did he say the global war on terror or Afghanistan specifically? Total global war on terror, U.S. casualties. So this is Iraq and Afghanistan. So the U.S. global war on terror has resulted in 7,000 military fatalities and 53,000 U.S. service members wounded in operations across Afghanistan, Iraq, and other global theaters. Okay? That was over 20 years. And by the way, I have friends who were wounded and survived in Iraq, and their injuries were superficial. So what I mean by that is there was a motor T guy, a security company motor T guy, and there was an IED that got set off and he took shrapnel to the face. Well, what happened was a few metal fragments cut and embedded themselves in his face flesh. And then they surgically removed them in Iraq, and he was back on the road within a week. So, like, that was wounded in Iraq. He got a Purple Heart for it, right? And when it comes to the another friend who was, quote-unquote, superficially wounded, there was a oil tanker that got blown up. He was combat camera, and he went over to photograph the tanker, and then the tanker went up in fire, and he got burned. Well, he did have sufficient burns that he was like Kazovac to Germany, and they had to do like skin grafts and all that kind of stuff. But I saw him like a year later, and he was fine. Like, he had to do skin grafts. Like, yeah, he was scarred. He had some burn scars, whatever, but he was fine. And so he's a part of the 53,560. These are walking wounded. Whereas what Preston Stewart is pointing out that I find incredibly interesting is the fact that these aren't walking wounded. These are FPV drone blew up in your fucking face and you are fucked up and combat ineffective. You know? Anyways, moving.
So not just a ruptured eardrum or maybe a minor shrapnel wound, but 28,000 out of the fight. On top of that, Ukraine says they hit a record number of enemy artillery and a record number of enemy vehicles and motorcycles, as well as intercepting 49,575 enemy drones. The best result ever, they say. Again, there are drones everywhere at all times along a massive front. I still don't know that those of us not engaged in this war and like along the front lines fully understand the volume of drones flying overhead at any given point. Now, I want to be able to do some sort of one-to-one comparison. Say, here are the Ukrainian stats and here are the Russian stats. The thing is, Ukraine is keeping a much better public tally of this information. Russia is not. Now, on the one hand, Ukraine has the unmanned systems forces, and they're kind of rolling up all of that data, again, verified on video. So there's kind of one place you can look for the vast majority of Ukrainian drone strikes. But even that doesn't count all of the units, which makes up the majority of the army, that are not technically under the unmanned systems forces. That's only a couple of units. Russia has some dedicated units as well. Rubicon.
Anonymous, if you want me to check out the Trump speech after this, I can. But what everybody said, all my liberals said, is that Trump is trying to use foreign interference as a proxy in order to claim that there's going to be, shenanigans with the upcoming midterm elections, and therefore the federal government needs more oversight, more limitations, more this, more that in reference to the elections. My counterpoint to the concern over this topic is that Trump oftentimes overplays his hands without sufficient evidence. So whatever he wants, he's probably going to get 10% of it. And as a result, I think we'll be fine. Now, Horses United says, Connor, I think you're saying that you are a cop in Canada. I was in Afghanistan and the U.S. Marines saved me. My best friend is named, I want to read this right, Ationio Alexios, and I'm their godfather. Well, God bless you, man. I'm happy that some of my brothers saved you, and now you are brothers to my brothers. I'm happy we are able to share that fraternal bond. Counterpoint, dumb, meh. Well, we'll check it out after this. How about this? We're kind of blazing through Preston Stewart content because I don't disagree with him. We're just kind of consuming it. But anyways, let's keep going.
Rubicon is one. It is their largest dedicated drone unit, and it is their most advanced and most successful drone unit or unmanned systems unit in the Russian military. They put out their June numbers, and I'll put them on the screen here. They said they carried out 109,000 combat missions, so drone flights, saying they eliminated, it does not clarify whether this is just killed, or seriously wounded, or killed or wounded at all, but the number they give is 807 Ukrainian soldiers. So real quick, 807 from Rubicon versus 28,000 for the Ukrainian unmanned systems forces. Now, Rubicon's focus has largely been on other things. You'll see that as we go through here. They say they hit, not clear that they're counting these as destroyed or damaged, but 13 tanks, 191 armored personnel carriers, which raises some suspicion. There's a lot of Russian drone footage here as well that we've seen. I don't know that I can vouch for 6 APCs getting destroyed or significantly damaged every day in the course of June. That seems a bit excessive. Either way, 12 armored transports, 30 self-propelled artillery systems, 51 towed artillery systems, 5 multiple launch rocket systems, 128 motor vehicles, and 794 automotive vehicles. No, I don't know what the difference is between those last two. I saw motor vehicles and thought 128 is actually kind of low for the number of trucks we've seen targeted, but I don't know, roll those two together and it's maybe motor vehicles or ATVs. I don't know, motorcycles as well. Your guess is as good as mine. Either way, a lot of kind of non-traditional military vehicles being targeted there as well, which is why we're fundraising for more trucks for Ukraine. More on that here at the back half of today's video. Now, if we can do some sort of one-to-one comparison, we're going to grab a random Ukrainian unit. I thought, why not grab the Alpha unit of the SBU, because they ranked first among the defense forces of Ukraine for the 4th month in a row. So we'll do a little side-by-side comparison here. The top Ukrainian drone unit with the top Russian drone unit. SBU released their footage as well, saying that in June alone, they neutralized, killed, or seriously wounded over 5,500 Russian soldiers. One unit. That is insane, the volume that these guys are flying drones. 5,500 Russian soldiers killed or seriously wounded by one Ukrainian unit in the month of June. On top of that, they say they destroyed 78, and I should note here, they say destroyed, not targeted, not hit, not damaged, destroyed. 78 artillery systems and self-propelled howitzers, 34 radar and electronic warfare systems, 33 armored vehicles, including 7 tanks, 16 multiple launch rocket systems, and 14 air defense systems. Again, that is one unit. One out of the entirety of the Ukrainian armed forces, the top-ranked unit when it comes to what they've been able to affect on the battlefield, but nonetheless, one unit. Now, that 5,500 Russian soldiers killed or wounded by simply Alpha this past month gives you an idea as to why mobilization might actually be in the cards for Russia. And we're hearing more and more about this, including on Russian channels, where officer at the front, a Russian mill blogger, just said, quote, "Mobilization is coming. All plans for receiving mobilized personnel for the end of September, beginning of October, are already in place in military districts, military formations, units, and subunits."
That's good, right? That's good that the Russians have had to mobilize 2 or 3 times. How many times have the Russians mobilized for Ukraine? Russia has officially ordered one nationwide mobilization for the war in Ukraine, which was a decree of partial mobilization announced by President Vladimir Putin in September 2022 to draft 300,000 reservists. While there's only been one official nationwide draft, Russia has significantly expanded its forces through other continued methods. Voluntary recruitment. Authorities have heavily relied on massive financial incentives, federal contracts, and regional bonuses to steadily recruit hundreds of thousands of voluntary fighters. Forced conscription. Russia has continually drafted tens of thousands of Ukrainian citizens in temporarily occupied territories such as Crimea and parts of Donetsk and Luhansk. Continuous and voluntary drafts. In addition to the ongoing regular biannual conscription cycles, the Kremlin adopted legislation allowing for year-round mandatory military recruitment. So, that sucks. Dude. Like, coming at this from like an American war on terror perspective, I feel incredibly privileged in a lot of ways. Because obviously, like, I was a pogue, so I got to stay on a base while I was in Iraq. Number 2, we took, like, indirect fire twice over the course of 7 months, and it was ineffective. Nobody got killed during my shit. There were 2 people who were wounded as a part of my company. Like I said, one Motor T security company guy took shrapnel to the face. One guy got fucking set on fire because he was too close to an oil tanker that ended up blowing up. That's it. Those were our total casualties, and they both lived, and they were both fine after it. Compare that to, you know, what was it, 8,000 dead over the course of 20 years in, like, half a dozen theaters? And, like, 50,000 wounded, including my 2 friends who got Purple Hearts? Like, that is infinitely more preferable. Russian casualties in Ukraine. So, Russian forces have suffered an estimated 1.4 million battlefield casualties, including 500,000 deaths. 500,000, dude. Well, I mean, 450,000, I guess, but still, let's go with the low number of 400,000. 400,000 divide by 8,000. Russia has suffered 50 times more casualties in the past 4 years than the United States suffered in 20 in the War on Terror. When did Russia invade Ukraine? Not the 2014. I want the other one. 2022. 4 years. 4 years to suffer 50 times more casualties. That is crazy pants. Hedonic Samuel with the 5 says, Cotter, should we send Ukraine a bunch of AGM 1149Xs? Just wanted them to get put to good use. So hold on. Is the Xs the Ginsu? AGM 1149 or 4R9X missiles. Specialized non-explosive variant of the Hellfire? Give them the explosive ones. Why would we give them the Ginsus? Dude, the Ginsus need to go to Israel so Israel can stop blowing up civilians. Okay? All the Ginsus need to go to Israel so Israel can stop so they can get a better combatant versus civilian KD ratio. The Russians can get the explosives. Horse God for 2 says Trump is too low energy for us to cover on stream. Depends on whether or not we run out of time. But anyways, let Preston Stewart regale us with more Ukrainian analysis.
That's a lot of what we're getting at this point. No official word from the Russian government, but a lot of rumors and a lot of speculation that that's the direction this is headed. Officer at the front cites the July 5th statement from Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov saying that the SMO, or Special Military Operation as they refer to it, has now become a war. He said that wasn't by mistake. Those words actually mean things. The specific phrase here from Peskov was, quote, everything started as a special military operation but turned into a war. The Russian mill blogger says to declare a general mobilization, a declaration of martial law is required. And this is possible only in the conduct of a war to protect the state from an external threat. And we're seeing a lot of analysis look at that terminology specifically. Again, go back over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. Russia has not been slipping up. They don't accidentally say special military operation in the same sentence accidentally say war. There's been kind of a squashing of anybody that ever tries to compare this to a war. That's not what it is. Come on. It's a special military operation. It's costing them more soldiers in 30 days than the United States lost in 20 years of Afghanistan. That is hard to grasp. But either way, the fact that you have somebody whose job is effective communication on behalf of the Kremlin, Peskov, he doesn't accidentally say a word like, this is a war, all right? So it's entirely possible that mobilization is on the horizon. Now, I know folks will look at this and they'll say, personnel taken out of the fight. Fine, Russia has more people. So this is just a matter of grinding down the Ukrainian armed forces and taking more territory. So let's take a look at the territory that has changed control over the course of June. We've got a couple different sources here, one Ukrainian and one Russian, starting with the Ukrainian source, Deep State. We regularly use their maps for our updates here. They have an analysis team as well. They say, according to our map, the increase in occupied territories in June was 84 square kilometers. At the same time, there's practically nothing to show about the successes of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and if we take into account how much we liberated last month, the enemy will have a negative number for the second time in a row. What they're saying there is a lot of these Ukrainian counterattacks have not been publicized. There's a lot of rumors of a couple different locations that Ukraine has pushed back, and they have not made it public because it puts Russia in a difficult position. I mean, we saw this up in Kupiansk, and there's rumors of it happening in Zaporizhia and elsewhere, where the Russian chain of command was reporting success, and Ukraine kind of exploited that and said, no, you haven't, and they showed proof. We're actually in the area you said you took, but there's some talk right now that Ukraine is instead being silent and saying, if we just don't announce that we retook that area, Russia's not going to announce it. They're not going to announce any failures, so they'll be able to continue to build and build and build. So that's what they're getting at, is Deep State saying, so far, none of the Ukrainian advances have been mapped. They added an interesting fact is that the number of assault operations has increased again, this time by 4.4%. But as we explained earlier,
dude, that sucks. Look at this video. If you have the capacity to take a look at your screen right now, take a look at your screen. This fucking sucks.
far, none of the Ukrainian advances have been mapped. They added an
Sorry. I know this feeling, okay? You're pissing, you're working on something, you're doing this, and then you notice something out of your peripheral vision, and you're like, ah, fuck. I was working on something, and this thing is about to come fuck my shit up. But this time, instead of it being a kid karate chopping you in the ear, or your wife slash ex-wife coming to bitch about you about something, or a dog sprinting across the room in order to get to something and he's about to bang into your knee, it's a fucking FPV drone about to explode in your goddamn face. Seriously, like, if you have the capacity to look at your screen right now, look at your screen. It's actually kind of horrifying.
interesting fact is that the number of assault operations has increased again, this time by 4 point.
I know that feeling, bro. I know that feeling, but that feeling didn't lead to a flying IED exploding in my fucking face.
4%. But as we explained earlier, this is related to the quality of these attacks. Very often, only one Russian goes on an assault. So there's interesting stats in tracking the number of attacks that take place all across the front, and something that they're accounting for, but we're seeing a rise in the number of attacks. So it makes it seem like a sector is, very, very hot. And it is. I don't want to downplay it, but instead of, it's not, one after the other, squad, platoon, certainly company-sized assaults. In many cases, these assaults, for lack of a better term, is one soldier trying to conduct infiltration operations, that tactic that we've seen Russia carry out now for some time. Now, I mentioned that we have a Russian source here as well, looking at territory that's changed control in the month of June. Crimea Caprice, which I don't pick the names, they do. That's one. Anyways, Russian mill blogger here said, quote, and he rolls this up every month, every day almost. I mean, at least every 3 days, we see an update from this blogger talking about the Russian rate of advance over a shorter period of time and how much they've gained or lost, although, they tend to not map the losses. So this is constantly being updated. He said, quote, by the end of June, the total area of territories under the control of the Russian armed forces increased by 112 square kilometers. So 112 compared to deep state saying 84, 30-kilometer difference on or about. But the big picture here is how little that is. All right. So don't go with the 84 if you want. Go with the Russian source saying 112. And if we look at that, according to Russian sources, that is the least amount of territory gained in a single month since June of 2024. You have to go back 2 years to find when Russia was moving this slowly across the battlefield. And we have to take into consideration the losses that they are suffering to do so. Again, if we tie all this together, 28,000 Russian soldiers killed or seriously wounded in the month of June, alongside the Russian number of 112 square kilometers gained, means that every square kilometer costs 250 Russians. That is staggering. The losses, the casualties, the lack of advance, just talk about a meat grinder. I mean, you can call that whatever you want, but when it costs 250 soldiers that are out of the fight, they're not coming back, for 1 square kilometer, just moving on Sloviansk, just taking the rest of Konstantinivka, just moving through the rest of the Donbass, all of a sudden, those casualties start to become hard to imagine, is probably the best way to put it.
Somebody asks an important question. Do they have to fly literally into their faces? Like, dude, fuck. Listen, I understand Russians are the invaders. They are the antagonists. They are the people who are starting this war, and arguably they could sue for peace at any point and say, hey, let us keep Donetsk, Luhansk, and Sevastopol, and then you could have fucking the rest of this shit back. And weirdly enough, I don't know how aggressively the Ukrainians would, accept that, the loss of Donetsk, Luhansk, and probably Crimea. But that seems a lot better than, I don't know, losing 200 dudes for 1 square kilometer and each one of them effectively taking an IED to the face on camera. Absolutely brutal. Now, I do see Crusader Danny saying that there's an AI drone that you want me to watch, and it does look like a short, so I'll watch that at the end of this segment. But fucking brutal, man. Brutal. Another comment says, Preston Stewart is substantially better than Ryan McBeth. Well, with Ryan McBeth, man, I'll be open to a Ryan McBeth redemption, but I will tell you that Ryan McBeth severely disappointed me with his Panama Canal analysis. Whereas, like, the reason why we can't have the Chinese controlling the Panama Canal is because they could put a commercial vehicle in the Panama Canal, blow it up, and then block the canal. And that would be a huge problem for us. And if they put intermediate ballistic missiles in Venezuela, that could threaten American, oil production. And it was like, these are just war games that you're doing in your drunk mind. These are not substantiated things. And even if China didn't own the Panama Canal, they could still send intermediate ballistic missiles to Venezuela, and they could still blow up a commercial vehicle in the middle of the Panama Canal. So what the fuck is this analysis? Like, it literally didn't make sense. It sounded like somebody role-playing as China 2 or 3 whiskeys deep. And then that was like what he came up with. So I did not enjoy that content. And I would appreciate it if Ryan McBeth went on a redemption arc. But anyways, let's continue. Muted myself because I'm a professional. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got it, memberships if you got it. My parasocial, we love you. Thank you for all the donations today. We were scratching 70. Okay, I'm not saying we're back, but I am saying there's a few people who they got over the drama and they wandered back into the cog. You know, we're not fully back to where we were, but there were a few curious souls who came back to check out the content.
So Russia is slowing down largely due to the increased effectiveness of Ukrainian drone strikes. And what we should expect to see here in the coming weeks and months is an even slower Russian advance as the logistics strikes that Ukraine is carrying out in the deep, or especially across the middle strike campaign, start to have their effects on the front. Fewer supplies moving to the front, less fuel moving to the front, fewer troop rotations coming to the front means slower and slower advances. And June already was a pretty significant downgrade for the Russian military. Now, I do want to provide a quick update on a fundraiser, Car for Ukraine. We're working with all year. We have just about completed our summer campaign. Last I checked, we were at like 94,000 euros out of a 97,000 euro goal. So this is probably going to be wrapped up here in the next 1, 2, 3 days. Incredible work. I just got word a couple days ago, a video that we still need to do some blurring work on, but nonetheless, the newest vehicle, the 20th truck, has been delivered, this one to the 225th Separate Assault Regiment. So incredible work, everyone. We're going to wrap up the summer campaign. It will continue to be live for the course of the next couple months, and probably September, October, we'll come back with another campaign to kind of wrap this thing up and get the Seraphims, the 2nd Battalion, 104th Territorial Defense Brigade, fully outfitted with a fleet of trucks from you all. So to learn more about that campaign or donate, if interested, that'll be in the pinned comment and description below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. So in a shocking move, the popular...
All right, so we still have the Black Sea Fleet, but Crusader Danny wants us to check this out real quick, so we'll check it out.
Your kids probably have one of these, right?
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works.
Yo. Even if that's not real, that's the future. Okay? So little suicide suicide drones with a miniature fucking a miniature payload. I understand. So that doesn't look real to me. Some people in chat are saying it doesn't look real to them. Regardless of whether or not it's real right now, that will be real in a decade. Funnily enough, being a hitman is going to be a lot easier in the future. Oh my God. I just realized, like, there is a totally undercapitalized market of drone pilot assassin, you know? Because all you need is like an FPV drone, right? And then all you need is a miniature homemade explosive package, right? And then you could go take out your enemies. And then not only that, it's very difficult to trace it back to you. So mini drone assassins are probably going to be a thing in the future. So Crusader Danny says that was a concept 7 years ago. It definitely exists now for sure. I don't know. It's a pretty small payload. It's a pretty small drone. So that for me, that looks like there will be some logistical challenges there. If it is present, you know, cool, whatever. Either way, if it exists now or if it exists in the next 10 years, it's going to exist in the next 10 years. Bring back Christian. I didn't ban Christian. We just fought about the Destiny drama. He thought that I overextended my claims, and he thought my claims were insufficiently evidenced. And I said some potty words because I feel like I am still correct in what I've done, and he didn't like it, and we fought about it. But Christian is welcome back at any point, and I would go out of my way to continue to try to cover other topics besides the Destiny drama. You know? It is what it is. He's welcome back at any point. Did you see the Anduril fighter jet drones? They just shot an air-to-air missile yesterday. I have. I'll show you that real quick before we check out the Black Sea Fleet. So, Anduril has autonomous fighter jet, where effectively it's just a F-16 without a pilot, a smaller F-16 without a pilot. And so it has the capacity to fly with in conjunction as a wingman, where basically it's just a wingman to a live pilot. And so since it has I don't even know if it's stealth. I don't think this is stealth. But basically, like, it's a conventional fighter craft, right? So it gives you more payload, more capacity to engage with enemy targets. If it's targeted by enemy radar, it's going to be targeted first, et cetera, et cetera. So, in my opinion, yes, this is going to be a part of the future of America's Air Force. Will effectively be like a single pilot will be in command of 2 or 3 of those guys. Yeah. Yeah, they do need to make it look a little bit cooler, but I still think it's a cool idea. It's a cool idea. Jen Winkler says, I know how to get him back. It's all part of the plan I said earlier. What? I need to get a better haircut? Is Christian Valeris gay for me? Did I not know that? I know some of you guys are gay for me. But I didn't know Christian Valeris was gay for me. But anyways, let's go ahead and check out the Black Sea Fleet getting fucked up before we wrap the Geopol. And then if we have somebody who did any coverage on the Trump speech or whatever with like clips and highlights, I'm sure that, who is it? I'm sure that Josiah from Pondering Politics did. I'm sure that he did, or somebody like him did. No, the other plan, the real one, you're going to have to refresh my memory. Anyways, let's check out what Preston has to say about the Black Sea Fleet getting fucked up by Ukrainian drones.
Russia in Crimea is spiraling. Gas is now $17 a gallon if you can find it. Some areas are going without water. There are rolling electrical blackouts, and the trucks that they set up to protect fuel convoys from Ukrainian drones, they're running out of gas. In fact, the complaints are piling up on Russian Telegram channels. The citizens there are livid. The mil bloggers or military reporters are dooming, and the Russian government, from what we can tell, seems unable to stop these Ukrainian strikes. So,
let's go. Let's fucking go. Like, listen, man, I told you guys, I'm kind of, like I said, I am a enthusiastic Ukrainian supporter. If your enemy has to pay $17 a fucking gallon for gas, if they can find gas, if their civilians are lining up to flee the territory that you are not even currently invading, if the logistics convoys in areas that your enemy controls are routinely getting fucked up and you do not even have to lose soldiers to fuck up their logistics supply convoys, that's a pretty good goddamn position to be in, you know? Doobie says maybe you can lure him back with the siren song of ancient Greek adventure. True. I was actually having a really good time with the playlist, Doobie, so don't let me forget about it entirely. Next Tuesday or Wednesday, I would like to spend some time after stream, like maybe 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. or 1:30 to 2:30 or something like that. I would like to continue it because I actually was legitimately enjoying the musical. So it was good stuff.
For Russia, the situation in the south is getting really bad, really fast. In fact, a great example of this is the continued strikes against Russian shipping, not just in the Sea of Azov, but now the Black Sea as well. Overnight, Ukrainian commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar, announced that the next phase of this operation has begun. They're referring to it as Operation Molochka, Molochka. He said this timing was designed to coincide with Ukrainian Statehood Day today, adding that Ukrainian drones are now operating in the Black Sea. Now, this follows about a week of strikes against Russian shipping in the Sea of Azov. Let's pull up a map here real quick to give you an idea of the area that are now saturated with Ukrainian drones. Deep state map here. We've got the Crimean Peninsula outlined in purplish red. The Sea of Azov is this body of water to the northeast, Black Sea to the west and to the south. So over the course of the last week or so, we have seen just an absolute massacre of Russian shipping. So 116, according to Ukrainian sources, 116 Russian ships hit in the Sea of Azov in about 7 days. That's crazy. And a lot of Russians were getting so frustrated, saying, where's the Black Sea Fleet? Not there. Also, why are there not even like some degree of protection? Where are the soldiers with machine guns being on these boats? How are they just sailing in a column day after day after day, getting hammered by Ukrainian drones? Well, according to Robert Magyar, that was phase one of the operation, and it's now complete with 116 total Russian.
Okay, number one, I don't think Xena is a fan of mine, so I think the chances of us having any kind of collaborative relationship, let alone a physical collaborative relationship, is very low. Number two, heart reticle. Heart reticle and tactical cat ears are the new meta. That is crazy. Dude, I saw it, but I didn't recognize it. That is kind of crazy pants to be giving your enemies the heart reticle as you fly explosive aerial drones into their commercial shipping. I knew Ukrainians were Warhammer 40K fans, and I knew that they were shit posters. I didn't know they were this level of shit posting. That is interesting.
Vessels hit. Now, I don't think we actually saw any ships sunk in the Sea of Azov, but we did see any Russian shipping just fall off the map. It went from 98, 90 in the first couple days down to 4 a couple days ago, and there's a lot of reports of insurers not being willing to provide insurance, shipping companies not willing to take that risk, and captains of ships saying, we're not doing that because there are ships burning in the distance all day, every day. And the reason this is a big deal is the Crimean Peninsula is increasingly becoming isolated, and this is something that Russian sources see playing out and seem unable to stop it. So we've got the strikes across the land bridge on the north that are constant. The Kerch Bridge in the southeast has already seen a reduction in what it's able to provide in terms of logistics. The sea passage was an area that had largely been untouched until about a week ago. Now the Sea of Azov is effectively shut off. According to Robert Magyar, the Black Sea is now open season. He said overnight, phase 2 began. The following targets were struck: 17 oil tankers, 2 gas tankers, and a tugboat in the Black Sea. He said from July 6th to July 15th, operators of the unmanned systems forces hit 136 vessels of Russia's sanctioned fleet in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. So again, 116 in the Sea of Azov, 20 in the Black Sea. These numbers are staggering. And we are...
I was going to say, man, those numbers are crazy. Those numbers are crazy. Dude, we fucked up Spain for one of our destroyers getting blown up, and it was probably us. Okay? The USS Maine during the Spanish Civil War, that was one of the cases for war, was the Maine blew up while it was in Havana, and it was likely improperly stored gunpowder and some kind of like friction shit that set it off and blew up the Maine. We blamed Spanish saboteurs, but it was probably improperly stored gunpowder that blew up the Maine. And we fucking fought a war over that shit and fucked some shit up over that. Then Pearl Harbor. I mean, how many ships were destroyed in Pearl Harbor? How many ships were destroyed in Pearl Harbor? 18 ships? And they're saying 136 Russian commercial vessels were damaged or destroyed in a 2-week period. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's crazy pants. Yeah, don't touch our fucking boats. I know, but Ukraine is fucking up Russia's boats right now. They're not touching 18 boats. They're not touching one boat. They touched 136 boats in 2 weeks. That is crazy. So, Old School for Two says, for someone to Minecraft Putin, I'm just saying, well, age will eventually Minecraft him for sure. Hedonic Samuel for Two says, back to the weeds. Have a good weekend, Cog07. Thank you for the chip, King. I appreciate you. Thank you to all the donos, by the way. When we wrap up this segment, I'll thank everybody who donated. You guys were very generous today. Thank you to Grassroots. Thank you to Doobie. Thank you to Hedonic Samuel. Thank you to Old School. Thank you to Gen X. I'll thank everybody in a minute. And Horse God says a good percentage of these ships aren't being sunk or destroyed, but insurance companies aren't going to cover these damages, so less ships will be willing to take on this cargo. Not only that, Horse God, I agree with you that, like, these aren't being sunk, but allegedly smokestacks in engine compartments and engines are being targeted, although I will say a substantial amount of these FPV drone videos look to be hitting cargo, but the cargo is also fuel. So if your ship, let's say that you're a cargo guy, you're a commercial vessel, you're a Russian patriot, you're proud to serve Comrade Putin and his desires to denazify Ukraine. And so as a result, you're willing to run the gauntlet and run oil into Ukraine. And then let's say you take half a dozen FPV drones to your fucking ship and it sets your ship on fire and your engines are fucked up and the insurance company isn't covering shit. And then your commercial like you lost like half a dozen crew members to the fire, but then you're also going to have to be towed to a dock and repaired for months, and your commercial vessel could be struck while it's in the dock. You know, that kind of changes the calculation from I'm a brave Russian patriot who's gonna, sail the gauntlet in order to support my country to holy shit, we are getting fucked up. And this is a lot more risk than I thought it was, We're
seeing a direct impact on Russian logistics. And it's not just, Russian logistics are falling off. We're seeing a shortage in Crimea, but also Russian mill bloggers and commentators are getting increasingly frustrated about what's playing out here. Russian nationalist Igor Girkin said, quote, the situation with gasoline and diesel fuel will undoubtedly worsen because our air defense is completely unable to protect not only everything, but even the most important items. The enemy is increasing the number and quality of its strike assets faster than we are able to create defenses. And to change the situation, our armed forces, unfortunately, are currently unable. This is very sad, but it's a fact. And from very early on in this campaign, when the middle strikes started playing out, that's something we talked about is Russia doesn't seem able to stop this, because if they could, they would. And the evidence of that is every day we are seeing ships get hit in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea. We are seeing logistics get hit in the southern occupied territories, air defense hit every single day, and almost daily a new refinery deep inside of Russian territory is going up in flames. You cannot look at those results and say that Russia has the ability to stop all Ukrainian drones all the time. They cannot. The impact of that is right now being felt significantly in Crimea, where there is a fuel, energy, and water shortage happening today, and it's getting worse by the day. But before getting to that, a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Factor. All right, real talk. It's summer, kids home from school, which means my schedule is an absolute mess. It is chaos in the Stewart household, which is exactly why I said yes when Factor reached out to sponsor today's video. Now, Factor delivers chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals straight to your door. They're real ingredients, balanced macros, and at least 2 vegetables per meal. And there's no planning, no prep, no cleanup. You open it, you heat it.
Start eating right.
Like green juices or peanut butter energy bites, little things that are just great. And 90, that's not of my day. So head to Factor 75, pretty significant. Don't for sponsoring place due to that. Let's talk about the effects on the ground. I mean, just yesterday, the mayor in Sevastopol, that's in Crimea, said that there is now a rolling blackout schedule in place due to the Ukrainian strikes. He says 2 hours of electricity on, followed by 6 hours off to protect the electrical grid. That is not getting better anytime soon. Earlier today, we got a notification from Russian officials that the water supply has been suspended in multiple areas of Crimea. Seems like a problem. And the fuel shortage, we have seen this stacking up for a while now. We've got some new footage here shared by Russian mill blogger Romanov, where he said the last gas station before the Crimean Bridge is what you're looking at here. He said the first thing you see is a line that stretches for kilometers for people eager to fill up their tanks with a meager 20 liters. He said the second thing you see, and we'll play this video as well, is a group of people siphoning gasoline from tanks just to wait in line again to fill up their tanks with those same 20 liters, wasting gasoline in the process. He said the gasoline is sold in Crimea for 300 to 400 rubles per liter, and you only get a code for 20 liters per week. Real quick, running the rough math on that, if we take the middle number, 350, between 300 and 400, that comes out to that's 350 rubles per liter. So for my American audience here, that is $17 per gallon. Imagine what would happen in the United States if you drive down the street and try to fill up the tank, and the first gas station isn't even open because they're not selling fuel anymore. They have none. But the next one you get to is $17 a tank. Think of the carnage that would erupt and the impact that would have, not just to you and I driving, but logistics, to farming, to service industry, everything. Now here's
Ooh, dude, I didn't even fucking think about that. That is brutal. I was thinking literally of $17 a gallon to go fill up your shit at the pump when you have gas available. Then 2 hours on, 6 hours off for the electrical grid. And then on top of that, I wasn't even thinking about how petroleum, needs to be prioritized for agriculture. So that's going to be increasing the cost for everything. Everything. We are so reliant, and I'm sure Russia is substantially reliant, on trucking in order to move food and water to where it needs to be. Imagine that at your local grocery store. I have 2 or 3 grocery stores up the block. So imagine that, okay, well, $17 a gallon. I'm only going to drive when I absolutely need to. That's okay. I can work from home, whatever. But then 2 hours of power, 6 hours off. Most of us, I don't know how the Russians are employed. I don't know how the Ukrainians are employed. But I'm reliant on electricity in order to work. So if I only have 2 hours of power, I'm only doing 2 hours of work per day. And then 6 hours, I'm sitting there with my thumb up my ass. Right? So I'm doing... I'm doing, 8 hours of work per day in 2 hour increments. That sucks. I know air conditioning probably isn't as big over there as it is here, but still, that's a concern. And then also the local trucks that are driving in food, some of them are probably getting blown up. And then not only are they getting blown up, but they're fucking getting charged $17 a gallon in order to get the food to the grocery store. Yeah, and well, QC John is saying not just the trucks. Farm equipment still needs to run on oil and petroleum. Holy shitballs. We're mad over here for $4 a gallon. Damn. Russians must be pissed.
Here's the deal. $17 a gallon would be staggering, but that's not the actual price. I mean, it is the actual price, but in terms of what the citizens of Crimea feel, it's significantly worse, right? The average salary there is something like $600 to $700 a month. So in the United States, according
Bro, fudge.
to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that number is around $5,600 per month, which means that comparatively, it would be like $150 a gallon. We're talking revolution, right? Like the entire country would shut down at $150 a gallon. That is happening right now in portions of Crimea. Report after report after report of 300 to 400 rubles per liter of gas. Now, it's not just that the citizens feel this, and it's hard to get emergency services, let's say, or hard to get logistics through the occupied Crimean territory. It's impacting the military as well, and this is what I'm talking about with the spiraling effect of these Ukrainian strikes. The trucks that are out there designed to protect the fuel convoys from Ukrainian drones, they're running out of fuel, at least according to the Ukrainian resistance movement, ATESH, A-T-E-S-H, where they said their units within the Russian armed forces in Crimea report a serious shortage of fuel. The command has introduced strict limits on refueling for mobile fire groups and air defense units, which are supposed to protect positions from drones. They said one of their agents in an air defense unit operating in the Shongar area, so this is one of the key passageways from the occupied territories into Crimea, they said, quote, "They give you fuel in teaspoons. You can only start the vehicle if it's for a combat mission. Otherwise, the equipment is just sitting idle. If you run out of fuel on the road, you just abandon it and run to the nearest trench or village to wait out the drones." And we've seen that. I don't know how many clips we've seen from Ukraine talking about striking the logistical infrastructure in the south, where it's a truck parked on the side of the road with the doors wide open. Now, in some cases, I'm sure they see the drone coming and they get out of there, but some of them, it looks like the drone spots it from a long distance off, probably before the drivers have any idea that the drone is inbound. Maybe they ran out of gas. They say, quote, "Our agents are documenting this."
I'm going to rewind that. I was distracted for a second, and I want to look at this footage. Look at this footage, man. Look at this footage.
Vehicle if it's for a combat mission. Otherwise, the equipment is just sitting idle. If you run out of fuel on the road, you just abandon it and run to the nearest trench or village to wait out the drones. And we've seen that. I don't know how many clips we've seen from Ukraine talking about striking the logistical infrastructure in the south, where it's a truck parked on the side of the road with the doors wide open. Now, in some cases, I'm sure they see the drone coming and they get out of there, but some of them, it looks like the drone spots it from a long distance off, probably before the drivers have any idea that the drone is inbound. Maybe they ran out of gas. They say, quote, "Our agents are..."
Jesus. For those of you who are incapable of looking at the screen, basically what we saw was a half dozen FPV drone strikes against parked trucks, but the parked trucks were either oil vehicles, water vehicles, or they were air defense crews. One of them was like a truck with like a dushka, like a anti-aircraft auto cannon machine gun in the back. That thing's gone. The what was the other one? The other one looked like a water truck or a fuel truck. That's gone. Whoever needed that water, whoever needed that fuel, they're screwed. And then it also looked like some jammers or troop transports. They also got smacked and set on fire. So, I mean, like, dude, thinking about that from like an American military perspective, like, we kind of lost our shit when a single Humvee or 2 or 3 Humvees or a 7-ton truck got blown up by an IED, whereas what we're seeing, which you might not be able to see with your own eyeballs right now, is half a dozen trucks on the same quarter-mile strip getting smacked up by FPV drone strikes that they do not seem capable of defending themselves against. That is a whole new level of fucked up warfare.
Are documenting this in practice. Crews are leaving with almost empty fuel tanks, and if the fuel runs out along the route, the soldiers simply abandon the vehicle and walk. Abandoned equipment remains in the open until it is spotted by a Ukrainian drone. Again, we have seen footage of that over and over again. They say the occupation command is not publicizing the scale of the problem, but the difficulties with basic refueling reveal the real state of supply for the Russian army. This is not a singular issue. It's not as though fuel becomes harder to come by and then everything else works as planned. With massive fuel shortages, the entire Russian army starts to, this is a bit excessive, but starts to collapse. The military cannot function without fuel. So we're already starting to see decisions made. Who gets the fuel? Like, fuel trucks get the fuel to try to bring more fuel to Crimea and to bring more fuel to the front lines. When those get...
Dude, I got to hit you with the quote. This footage is bananas. What is it? It's like amateurs talk about tactics. Amateurs talk about tactics, professionals, logistics. What is the quote? The aphorism highlights that while strategy and planning are exciting, success actually depends on the unglamorous execution of supply transport and maintenance. It's a famous military maxim often attributed to U.S. General Omar Bradley or General Robert H. Barrow. So, what is it? It's like amateurs talk tactics, professionals study logistics. So right here, man, like look at this footage. If you're capable, let me rewind a second.
Try to bring more C decisions. Starts shortages, the becomes harder to come by, and then everything else works as planned. With massive fuel shortages, the entire Russian army starts to, this is a bit excessive, but starts to collapse. The military cannot function without fuel. So we're already starting.
Dude, it looks like the Ukrainians are hitting local storage facilities and are hitting the vehicles parked outside for mass transportation. And I can't even calculate how damning that is to lose 10, 20, 30 logistics vehicles and lose your fuel supply for them. They hit the oil supply at Al-Assad like 7 months before I showed up. It took months to repair that oil facility. They had to, they basically had to truck in new temporary storage drums and then have people fucking show up and fuel there. Whereas the permanent facility literally took months to rebuild. So we're talking about, so that got hit. It took months to repair at Al-Assad Air Base. What we're talking about is not only is the permanent infrastructure getting hit, but then the temporary infrastructure that you're rolling in order to replace the permanent infrastructure is also getting hit. Holy I don't know how the Russians aren't fucking sweating bullets and shitting bricks right now.
Starting to see decisions made. Who gets the fuel? Like, fuel trucks get the fuel to try to bring more fuel to Crimea and to bring more fuel to the front lines. When those get hit, there's even less. They're running out of fuel for the protection convoys, the mobile fire groups to protect these fuel convoys and logistical convoys. This is going to, every single one of these that gets hit, it gets exponentially worse. That is what we are seeing play out right now in the southern occupied territories and Crimea, which is, and we'll probably do an entire video on this in the coming days. Russian mill bloggers, very nationalistic, very patriotic, very much want Russia to win, are more and more coming out of the woodwork saying this is a real problem. We are in a serious bind. One after the other saying we don't have a fix. This is a real issue. In fact, what they keep pointing to as what they need to do to change the dynamic is hit Ukraine harder, not find new ways. They don't have new ways to stop all these strikes. It's just making Ukraine pay even more. In fact, that's probably what we are going to see here in the next couple of days and weeks, as Russia has failed to be able to stop these strikes, and it's having a significant impact on their operations. We should expect the one thing that they're going to do is to launch overwhelming missile and drone strikes against Ukrainian cities.
I agree that that's probably going to be Russia's response, but absent of genocide, okay, which, by the way, if they attempted a genocide against the Ukrainian people, then I'm pretty sure the United States and Europe, Western Europe, would actually redouble their efforts to support the Ukrainians. Absent literal genocide against the Ukrainian people, I don't think overwhelming drone Shahed and missile strikes are going to, fucking stop Ukraine from doing this at all. Not only that, but Iran, the producers of the Shahed, they're kind of a little busy right now. So if Iran's occupied, they can't sell the Shaheds. Russians are reliant on domestic manufacturing. The Ukrainians are hitting Russian domestic manufacturing and energy logistics with Flamingo long-range ballistic missiles. They're fucking up Zaporozhye and Crimea with intermediate fucking drone shit. They're fucking up the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov with intermediate drone shit. They're killing 30,000 Russian troops a month. And then gasoline is $17 a gallon. But because of the disparity in pay between Westerners and people in Crimea, it's more akin to $150 to $200 a gallon. Jesus. I did not know it was this bad.
That's what we've seen in the past. I have no reason to expect Russia to change their strategy now. That, unfortunately, is probably going to be in the cards here in the next few days. Now, I do want to provide a quick fundraiser update. We just wrapped up our summer campaign, delivered the 20th vehicle so far this year. Can you imagine that? What you all have done? 20 vehicles delivered to frontline units. This most recent one went to the 225th Separate Assault Regiment, a unit operating out of the Geopol direction. And we completed the summer campaign with this. So we've still got a couple more deliveries coming, no doubt. But what we did with Car for Ukraine is it's a year-long campaign, and we broke it out into, we weren't sure. It was going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 different campaigns. Probably just going to be 4 because you guys have been so incredibly generous. And the first 2 went so far over the goal that we're actually on track to hit the overall goal here pretty quickly. But anyways, incredible work, everyone. Just wrapped up the summer campaign. We'll come back to this probably in 2 months for a fall/winter option. And we've got some new patches in the works, some unit patches that I'm waiting to announce. Hopefully.
Sorry, I'm just letting this play just in case you guys are curious. Preston Stewart, Preston's campaigns in 2026, Preston Stewart Offensive 2026, total money raised, 345,000 euros, 430,000 euros raised. And according to him, what was it, 20 small vehicles, 20 vehicles delivered to Ukrainian armed forces? Jeez. God bless this guy.
Hopefully we can get those out here soon. Really cool stuff. But anyways, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much. It is humbling to see your all's generosity. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
What a fucking champion, dude. All right. I see it. Preston Stewart is he's a dry vanilla white guy with dry delivery. But when he talks about serious topics, not only is he delivering a substantive amount of good information, but he is also wholesomely using his clout, money, and influence in order to back up the Ukrainian armed forces that he's cheerleading and giving them logistic support in their struggle to maintain their sovereignty. So God bless Preston Stewart. God bless the Preston Stewart mission. What a fucking champion. What a fucking champion. What a good egg. What a good egg. Speaking of good eggs, you guys have been beautiful today. It is currently 12:09. If you guys want to sign off and just wait for Valor Reacts at 1 p.m. on Twitch, we could do that. So I'm going to give you guys an option right now. I'm going to do a little poll. Stay and do Trump speech, or dip and do Valor Reacts. Valor Reacts or Trump speech. I'm actually ambivalent. I could do either one. I'm a little bit hungry, but you guys did let me go earlier yesterday so I could go pick up my kids. So I have no problem staying for another 40 or 50 minutes in order to do the Trump speech. Otherwise, I can just dip out for 30 minutes and come back at 1 p.m. on... I can come back at 1 p.m. I just knew that a substantial amount of the people who actually are community members, they said they've already watched other coverage of the... they've already watched other coverage of the Trump speech. Fellrunner says, stay, I'm driving, you're my talk radio. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I need to defer to, veteran community members. He wants off to sext his hose. You're not wrong. Hold up. Let's do the Trump speech. Okay, so 62% of you guys said that I could dip out, but I feel like I need to be loyal. Bros before hoes. I need to be loyal to I need to be loyal to my community members because my bros pay for my hoes. So I looks like there's 2 speeches, 25 minutes and 48 seconds, streamed 24 hours ago. This shit is gonna suck. And I'm probably not going to make it through all of it, but I am going to put it at 1.10. And we'll just suffer together and do a little bit of commentary. How about that? What the fuck is React stuff? So Rodney Hobbs, in case you're unfamiliar, we do Valor Reacts on Fridays. So there's a gentleman by the name of Dan Pace. He's a Special Forces veteran of 20 years. Him and I think, are quite friendly. I think even he would describe us as internet friends. He does not have any weird sexual proclivities that I don't know. But on twitch.tv, because they do not have as aggressive as copyright fucking bullshit, we basically watch war movies and break it down from our nerdy perspective. So at 1 p.m. EST, we'll be going to twitch.tv/counterpoints, and we'll be watching Valor Media. We'll be watching, what's it called? Warfare. The Navy SEALs movie about I think it's the battle either of Ramadi. I think it's Ramadi, but it could be Najaf. I forget. But it was a battle in Iraq, and it was pretty hardcore. So, Chort says, I'm going to be real. I'd rather gouge my eyes out with a fork than watch the Trump speech. Well, unfortunately, people did say they need some entertainment. And this is a current event and news event. So, anyways, let's suffer together for fun.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before. We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster. After the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from...
Okay. I'm not even going to bother drawing it. I'm just going to describe it again just in case some fucking Trump dicksucker comes into chat. What happens when economic activity goes down and money supply goes up? I'm pretty sure it's a phenomena called inflation. So what happened during COVID? Economic production went down substantially due to shutdowns, and Donald Trump presided over the shutdown of the economy, which arguably could be necessary, arguably could not be necessary. And then he printed a shitload of cash, and he put his name on the checks. So while under the Biden administration, the economy is on a lag, right? You do shit, and then it affects the economy down the pipe. While under the Biden administration, there was a peak of 9% inflation. Who printed the fucking checks? Donald goddamn J. Trump. Anyways.
From all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murderers, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women's sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week, it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nations policy because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to trumpaccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is.
Yeah. Let's try not to have too much TDS. No tax on tips. Let's be real. Most servers didn't report their tips accurately, but that's fucking sick. No tax on overtime. That's fucking sick. You're just keeping more of your money. It's more productive. The investment accounts, while I think that him doing his name on the website, the TrumpRx.gov, that's cringe. Doing the TrumpAccounts.gov, that's cringe. But is it generally speaking a decent idea to set up some kind of like matching investment fund that's tax-free for young people? Yes, that's a good idea. Generally speaking, is it better to negotiate drug prices down using the weight of the government in order to do so? Yes, those things are fucking based. What I think is cringe, and I think this is probably what the libs and the Never Trump Republicans are feeling is cringe about this speech, is that these are ignoring the things that have fucked up severely badly. Here's my TDS now that I said the good Trump stuff. Killing a few 100,000 Africans due to preventable disease through the slashes through PEPFAR and USAID that ended up saving the average American around $35 per year. That was cringe, gay, and lame. I think killing hundreds of thousands of people through preventable disease sucks. I think that's cringe, gay, and lame. The Iran war. If you wanted to do the 12-day war where you bombed Iranian nuclear infrastructure and then negotiate from there, I don't think I would have been bitching about it half as much. I think what is more fucked up is our current military shit where we decapitated the Iranian government, let them grow back like a hydra, and fuck with the world's energy supply. That sucks dick. That's Trump's fault. PEPFAR, USAID, Iran. Oh, yeah. And then the tariff regime. The tariff regime, where he's just setting tariffs arbitrarily, and that's fucking up inflation for most consumer goods. That sucks. And then also, when it comes to the mass deportation operations, hey, I'm a secure borders guy. I fucking love secure borders. Let's go. Secure borders. However, violating the 4th, 8th, and 14th Amendment of the United States is kind of a big deal to me. So fuck the Trump administration for that. Anyways, there's my highlights of the good Trump things and my highlights of the bad Trump things. Continuing.
0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst.
Somebody says lower taxes are bad. That's actually an okay point. I think taxes should be reduced for the working class and the middle class. 80% of fucking people already, 80% of taxes, 70% of taxes, or is it 50% of taxes is already paid by the top 1%? What is it? Top 1% pay what percentage of taxes? Top 1% of taxpayers pay approximately 40 to 46% of all federal income taxes while earning around 22 to 26% of all AGI. I'm okay with that. I am perfectly okay with that. Yeah, the deficits suck. True. We're deficit spending like a motherfucker. Absolutely. You're right. You're right. You're right. I think basically anybody who makes under $250,000 a year should have like 10% tax rate because they're all fucking working stiffs. Even when you're talking about engineers, even when you're talking about surgeons, even when you're talking about, whatever that doctor thing is, that's not a doctor. It's like the nurse practitioner or whatever. It's basic. I don't think it's a nurse practitioner. It's something else. It's like a doctor's assistant or medical assistant. I forget what it is, but there's basically a nurse who's a super hardcore nurse who can do everything a doctor does except for surgery. I forget what that shit is. So, yeah. Yep. I think if you make under $250,000 a year, you should keep a majority of your income. If you make more than $250,000 a year, you can cry about it on your fucking jet ski.
Border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure. One where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence, revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings we are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files.
Hold on, I'm going to read this real quick, just because I trust this guy to basically be a bullshit artist. So, vulnerabilities in electronic voting and ballot counting systems. For years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. We are releasing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attacks. As one assessment states, we judge that U.S. adversaries, including at minimum Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. The documents also state, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use access to these systems to disrupt election processes. Tonight, we are releasing all these findings spanning from January 2020 to 2026. This is a cyber threat that aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot by the Maduro regime in Venezuela to do exactly that, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020. This reporting included precise details about methods the regime developed to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own systems can never be hacked or compromised. So what people pointed out about this, which I think is funny, is that this is calling out foreign interference, including who? Including Russia. But what does Trump say about Russia election interference? Oh, it's a hoax. Russia, Russia, Russia. It was a giant hoax. The media made it up. And what is he doing right now? He is confirming that Russia, Iran, and China had centralized attempts to manipulate American elections. But it's also so vague, too. Do they have any evidence that any electronic voter systems were actually compromised and or manipulated by a foreign entity? That would be interesting. China's acquisition and exploitation of American voter data. Over a period of years starting during the 2020 election cycle, probably before that, let's be real, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 U.S. voter files. That information includes name, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would need to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically for this project. Members of the deep state and our intelligence community work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling. Okay, specifics would be great. Covering it up from both the president and the American people. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states had been bought, stolen, or hacked by China, yet those responsible to sounding the alarm instead kept the information hidden. Okay, what actually happened, though? So a Chinese guy knows that Connor blankety blank lives in blankety blank city, has blankety blank party affiliation, and voted blankety blank in reference to the primaries and voted blankety blank in reference to the general shit. What did they do with that information? Any specifics? Michigan voter registration investigation. Even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization in Muskegon, and were so concerned by what they found that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to the number of applicants they produced. The FBI agents working on the case believe that the crimes were committed, yet the Biden DOJ slow-walked the investigation for years. Director Patel is being directed to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the DOJ to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. How many? Was it outcome determinative? Non-citizens on state voter rolls. According to a DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identify approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher, yet even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voters filed are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on voter rolls. And yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating endlessly through the mail. Okay. I would love evidence. So, for instance, out of these 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote, how many of them have voted? Was it outcome determinative? And the lack of details in reference to those two questions, which are perfectly relevant to overhauling our entire election system, I would like to know what the fuck you're talking about and whether or not it's actually affected elections. Moving on.
That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China has signed a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country.
So Crusader Danny sent me a Department of Homeland Security PDF file, and it had non-citizens that were on the voter rolls in Georgia, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, Idaho, Alabama, Missouri, Louisiana, and Kansas. Adding up all of these people total across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 states leads to a 10,000 non-citizens being on voter rolls. So the data that I would like is how many of them voted. And then the same thing, so out of the 250,000 claimed, or 400,000 claimed in this thing, 400,000 deceased registrants and 28,000, oh wait, hold on. 25 states produce more than 68 million registration records through the SAVE system. DHS has established those states to identify over 400,000 deceased registrants and over 28,000 non-citizens who illegally registered to vote. So how many of the 28,000 actually voted? Okay. And can't you purge voter rolls? This is another one. Voter system breaches, potential avenue for exploitation, data breaches generally, conclusion. Voter registration databases are the foundation of our voting system. State and local election officials must prioritize system security and implement safeguards to prevent the exploitation of data that may have already been exposed. Adopting modern security enhancements such as smart network monitoring and multi-factor authentication can limit the risks of fraud and election disruptions. Okay, hold on. All right. Obviously, I am reflexively sweeping for the status quo because I do not want the federal government to concentrate power in reference to election systems so Trump and his cronies can rig it on behalf of himself and Vance or Rubio or whoever the Republican successor is, right? So I don't want alleged fraud to be used to justify stealing elections. However, if you ask me in general, am I for voter ID? Am I for security apparati? If I'm for purging dead people from voter registration rolls and criminally and non-citizens and purging those records whenever they're discovered and criminally prosecuting anyone who does it, of course I am. Of course I want secure elections. Of course I want criminals to be prosecuted. Of course I want fucking secure elections, blah, 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 blah. I think, like many Never Trump Republicans and like many Democrats, though, I am worried about the allegations of fraud being used to sane wash January 6, 2021 and being used to concentrate power in the federal government so morally dubious people can rig elections for themselves. Anyways.
a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say the cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world.
Okay. So, hold on. I'm trying not to freak out. Not that this thing is particularly pressing, but I'm trying to make sure that my responses are coherent. I think I've already articulated my anxiety. So, Crusader Danny, I am with you in that my instinct is not to say, oh, this is all propaganda, this is all bullshit, this is all fucking Trump doing a power grab for the elections. No. If there are 28,000 registered illegal aliens that administrative departments within the executive that are not specifically loyal to Trump have evidence that 28,000 or whatever illegal immigrants are on voter rolls, then of course the next question is how many of those people voted voted. Because if it's outcome, not only is it a crime that should be followed up and prosecuted, especially if they had knowledge that it was a crime, but then also if it was outcome determinative, that changes the nature of the game, right? And then Rodney Hobbs asked this question: Are there any motivations for voter ID besides vibes? Yeah, just like sanity. Okay, U.S. citizens are asked to present voter ID all the time, or excuse me, not voter ID, but picture ID all the time. We present picture ID when we want to masturbate in Republican states. Not that I do that. I don't masturbate. And I don't present my voter ID to porn websites. There's alternative ways to do that. But anyways, we are asked to present voter ID when looking at certain pornographic websites. We are not voter ID, picture ID. We are asked for picture ID when we buy alcohol. We are asked for picture ID when we buy a firearm. We are asked picture ID when we are buying tobacco. We are asked picture ID when we buy vape products. So, if we age gate tobacco, vape, marijuana, guns, and those are all things that we accept photo ID for, why would we not require photo ID for the most sacred thing you can do in a democracy, which is vote? This is one of the things that actually frustrates the shit out of me, because if you want to argue it from a utilitarian perspective, that there is not sufficient evidence of voter fraud, to justify the sweeping legislation, you can appeal to it from a utilitarian, consequentialist perspective. And I might even agree with the arguments that the people who crave voter ID do not have sufficient evidence to show that there is such voter corruption that this is a serious concern. But that doesn't apply to the principle of the matter. The principle of the matter is we require photo identification for plenty of behavior unquestioningly. Why do we not require photo identification for arguably the most sacred thing you can do in a democracy? You know? Seems very silly to me on a principled basis, even if you want to argue consequentialism. And Randy Chang says free IDs. I unironically, there's all these arguments about access and fees and paying the DMV $20 and you're working 60 hours a week and going to the fucking DMV to do it. I agree. Let's make them free. Literally free. Okay? You come in with 2 pieces of mail with your fucking name on it and some other form of identification like your birth certificate or whatever. You actually look like you're the person. We'll give you a free ID. Literally make it fucking free. Yes, absolutely. Crusader Danny says, I also gave you screenshots of documents about China being involved with influencing the BLM riots and paying U.S. journalists to be anti-Trump. God, I wish. Somebody asks if somebody is paying me to be anti-Trump. No, I'm naturally anti-Trump. Unfortunate. I could have been getting paid the entire time, and instead I've been relying on conservatarians and Twitch and YouTube political autists in order to make my daily bread when I could have been relying on China. I could have talked shit about Trump for Chinese money, and I could have talked shit about Israel for Qatari money. And unfortunately, I'm reliant on Twitch and YouTube super chats from real flesh and blood human beings. Wildly unfortunate.
These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director.
Burn bags or burning or shredding is obviously routine when you get into secret shit. So, for instance, part of the reason why veterans get partial disability is if they're exposed to jet fuel. But the jet fuel is used to burn 2 things: poop and secret documents. So back when we didn't have the plumbing on American military bases in Iraq and Afghanistan, what you would do is you would basically take out like a burn barrel. You would take the human feces that was in the latrines. You would drag it out. If you want to look at like a relatively accurate version of that, go ahead and watch Jarhead. And so basically you put in diesel and gasoline and you burn the poop. And the people who were exposed to burnt poop apparently have all sorts of horrible, horrible, horrible fucking breathing problems. And then also people who are exposed to jet fuel in reference to burning documents for the military. Top secret and secret documents were routinely burned. We were only allowed to hold on to them. Printed secret documents, we were only allowed to hold on to them for a certain amount of time before we had to burn them. So CIA or fucking FBI or whoever having similar procedures are, that's unsurprising to me.
Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including, at a minimum, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country.
Doobie for 10 says, Dem say it's Russia undermining our political system. The Republicans say it's China. The real ones know it's Israel. Thank you, Doobie. Just, can I just point out that 80% of Doobie's super chats are not critical of any online creators. They're critical of the state of Israel. Can I just remind the chat of that fact?
The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was.
And this is where I feel like they're doing self-sweeping for 2020. I don't know if you guys remember the Dominion voting systems, but they're taking this analysis of Venezuela rigged its own elections. As a matter of fact, I should Google if Venezuela used Dominion voting systems. Did Venezuela use Dominion voting machines? Okay. Why can't I get a AI answer? No, Venezuela has never used Dominion voting systems, now renamed Liberty Vote, voting machines for its elections. Instead, Venezuela's electronic voting system was historically developed and supplied by an entirely different company called Smartmatic. Independent company, Dominion Voting Systems was founded in Toronto, Canada in 2002 and is completely separate from Smartmatic. No shared ownership. The family of former Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez never owned a stake in Dominion. Dominion has no financial corporate ties to Venezuela. Origin of the rumor. Following the 2020 U.S. presidential election campaign, several political figures spread unverified claims conflating the two companies to argue that Venezuelan-tied software rigged U.S. elections. Legal outcomes. Multiple U.S. courts ruled these claims false. Right-wing media networks paid hundreds of millions of dollars in defamation settlements to Dominion and Smartmatic for broadcasting these false allegations. Smartmatic provided the physical machines and software for Venezuela from 2004 to 2017. Declassified CIA intelligence reports indicate that while Venezuela officials possess capabilities to manipulate their domestic system, they could not influence foreign election outcomes. So they had Smartmatic machines, but American media pundits claim that it was Dominion incorrectly, and then also no one has proven the manipulation. Old School for 10 says, Minnesota's election chief admitted on video that illegal aliens can vote since driver's licenses are all the law required for registration, and Waltz passed the law to give illegal aliens driver's licenses. Well, weirdly enough, that's not what I thought you were going to say, Old School. I thought you were going to say that in Minnesota, there was video evidence of ballot harvesting, which is arguably at minimum unethical and in some states illegal process. Is ballot harvesting legal in Florida? 4 states allowed only the voter return to the voter ballots with exceptions. 2 states require voters to return the ballots by mail. Is ballot harvesting legal in Minnesota? So, and to be clear, what I mean by ballot harvesting is effectively like volunteers will walk around, help old people fill out the ballots. Sometimes they will, even though they're prohibited, they will unethically tell people how to vote. And then they'll either sign it themselves, like was documented in the whitehouse.gov website, or they'll have the people sign it, but then they collect like 50 votes at a time and then turn it in on behalf of the recipient's behalf. So those volunteers, if it's not legally prohibited, although it can be viewed skeptically, ethically, they will argue, oh, well, these people are disabled and they live in a nursing home and they don't have a car and they don't have a bus and they don't do this and they don't do that. Therefore, helping them vote is actually a good thing. We're providing a social service. What critics of this process say is that if a person cannot get to a ballot, if they can't ship it in, then, fuck them, they shouldn't be voting. And then number 2, by helping them fill out the ballot, you are effectively voting on their behalf. Therefore, not only is it unethical, it's also illegal. So, kind of depends on who you talk to. Doobie for $50 says pro-Russian billionaires have purchased multiple American news orgs and social media companies to suppress anti-Russian content. China's lobby made it illegal to boycott Chinese goods and had people deported for criticizing the Uyghur genocide. Wait. Another jab at our greatest ally. Thank you for the oil, Doobie. Appreciate it.
Was in the past. The 4th set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned. They couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agent.
I'm not pausing here because I'm trying to cover up what Trump is alleging. If you want to do it, there's still there's 7 minutes left in the video. So if you want to watch the original, go to 18 minutes, 17 seconds. You can watch all of it. But it is 56 And as much as I would love to stay here and continue to watch content and allow Doobie to super chat crazy amounts of money to shit talk the state of Israel, unfortunately, I have to go hang out with Dan Pace and review the movie Valor, or excuse me, not Valor Reacts is the name of the show, but we're going to be reviewing the movie Warfare, which has been phenomenal. So let me read Doobie Super Chat. Let me thank everybody who's donated, and then let me run away from you guys. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, Super Chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. My parasocial love you. Thank you so much for your financial support and your viewership. We did top out during the geopolitical segment at around 70 viewers. Normally, I was at 80 to 150 prior to the drama. So the fact that we were stuck at 50 for the past 4 days, and then we're starting to creep back up into the 70s or 80s, I think there's some people who wanted to be angry at me and not watch the content, and they wanted to cut me out of their lives, but they realized I was so charismatic and so beautiful and so intelligent, they couldn't live without me. And as a result, they started creeping back into the community. What a beautiful day to be a cogger. Anyways, blah, 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 blah. Trump took $230 million from just one Russian oligarch and openly gloats about them coming to the White House demanding things for Russia in return. Chinese lobbyists have attempted to merge parts of the U.S. and Chinese militaries. Yes, I know we're still talking about our greatest ally, Israel. Doobie says, sorry, quick correction. That was all Israel. Yes, Doobie. Yes, I got it. You were shit talking our greatest ally. Wait, what's oil? I would say any donation above $20 is typically oil. Rodney Hobbs says, I'm still disappointed in you, Connor. Why? Because I want voter ID? Anyways, let's thank everybody who donated today. Thank you so much for your viewership and your financial support. I do appreciate you guys. We will be going over to twitch.tv/counterpoints in order to watch the movie Warfare together and break it down. Dan Pace is a 20-year Special Forces veteran from the United States Army, and we like watching war films together and talking shit. So Doobie, thank you for the 20. Doobie, thank you for the 20. Doobie, thank you for the 50. Old School with the 10. Doobie with the 10. Hedonic Samuel with the 2. Old School with the 2. Doobie with the 10. Hedonic Samuel with the 5. Horse God with the 2. Doobie with the 10s. Jen Winkler with the 10. Good to see you, Jen Winkler. Thank you so much for chipping. Grassroots with the 20. Thank you, King. Appreciate you. Officer Nasty with the 5. Sapien Green with the 50. DKK. iCup with the 10. Grassroots with the 20. Vazraka with the gifted. Thank you, kings and queens. Not only for your viewership, but thank you so much for your financial support as well. It does mean the world to me that I am still able to do this as a job with such a small community. You know, 50 viewers to 150 viewers, and we peaked out at 70 or 80 today. Looks like some old souls who once loved me are checking in on me to see how I'm doing. Anyways, all right. I'm going to go get some water. I'm going to be live on twitch.tv/counterpoints in a second. The link is pinned right now. So if you want to come hang out with us and watch a war film, do so. I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. I parasocially love you. Thank you so much for hanging out.